Bill and I had known each other since high school. We weren't exactly the smartest kids, but we weren't dumb either. When we were about 19, we had a talk and decided that we weren't going to burden ourselves with huge college debts. We realized there was good money to be made in trades. Electricians were always in demand, and Bill's Uncle Rick was an electrician. He was older than Bill's dad and was reaching an age where he was happy to have a couple of apprentices he could underpay while they learned from him. He had been frugal with his money, so retirement was on the horizon, and he was thinking about moving to Texas, where the milder winters would be easier on his joints. Bill imagined either him or both of us taking over the business and expanding it. So we joined his Uncle Rick, worked as apprentices for low pay, but learned all the skills we needed. We had a plan, but before we could execute it, we had to deal with all the usual challenges of growing up, learning about life, sex, and relationships with friends of both genders. We learned what made people become and stay friends, what people valued, and how to be good company, loyal and supportive. In school, we always had each other's backs. People quickly learned that if they messed with one of us, they had to deal with both of us. We weren't huge guys, but we were tough from sports and had our share of fights. Our friendship was solidified one day when I had trouble with two big guys from the football team, and Bill jumped in with swinging fists. Before they knew it, we had taken both of them down, and after that, no one wanted to mess with us. When it came to girls, Bill was a bit of a player, always with a different girl on his arm. Jim, by the way, I became infatuated with Lisa in my first year out of school, as Bill and I were learning the electrical trade from his Uncle Rick. I met Lisa in a bar one night, and we just hit it off. We liked each other and spent a lot of time together. Eventually, it moved to the bedroom, and we found we were just as compatible there. Bill felt like a third wheel and wasn't happy about losing his wingman, but he said I had done well for myself, and that if I hadn't connected with her first, he would have liked to see where things could have gone with Lisa. We all got along so well, it felt like we were all family. Lisa and Bill would hug fondly, and I thought nothing of it. We were buddies. You never have to worry about your buddy around your girl, right? As time went on, Uncle Rick retired, sold the business to Bill and me, and moved to Texas. My parents co-signed a loan that helped me buy my part of the business. Bill's money came as a gift from his parents, so I was the only one with debt. I married Lisa 2 years ago, and life seemed pretty sweet. Marriage was good, the business was thriving, and we were growing it. A little advertising, some social media with past client recommendations, and soon we were as busy as we could manage. We thought about hiring more guys, but trained electricians weren't easy to find at rates we could afford, so we worked longer hours. Lisa worked as a clerk in a law office. The pay was okay, but she didn't enjoy the work, and there was a creep of a lawyer who hit on her, but she fended him off. She said she was looking forward to starting a family. I wasn't sure when that would be with my loan and all. We were doing okay, but it wasn't the right time to lose her income with my long hours and no real chance to start the family. Lisa began to retreat into herself, and I started to worry about depression. I kept telling her that things would get better and that happy days were ahead. But that didn't stop her unhappiness. Then one day it was like a switch flipped. Lisa had a smile on her face and the tension was gone. I wondered what had happened, but was happy to see my wife smiling again, so I didn't overthink it. Soon our stalled sex life came alive again, with Lisa needing sex almost every day. Who would complain about that? Then one day I noticed she was more interested in weird fetishes. I was happy, but also concerned because it wasn't like her. A few weeks later, I needed to talk to someone, and the obvious choice was my best friend, Bill. We met at a bar, bought a couple of beers, and took a booth at the back wall. "What's eating you, buddy?" Bill asked. "You've been off for the last few weeks." I didn't want to interfere, but I'm here if you need to talk. It's about Lisa. She was down, hated her job, and had that snake of a lawyer hitting on her. Then about 6 weeks ago, she changed, happy as can be, and 2 weeks later, she's trying to screw me to death almost every day. And your problem with a happy wife trying to screw you is what? Bill said with a smirk. Well, after a couple of weeks, I noticed she suddenly became very fond of weird acts. Thing is, She's never shown any interest before. It got me thinking, where's this coming from? Is she learning new tricks with someone else? Bill said something, and I caught a slight look of panic on his face before he quickly recovered. It's all good, Jim. We stayed a couple of hours and drank some beers, but now I had two people who concerned me. I'm not an educated man, but I've heard of Occam's razor. When various solutions present themselves, the most obvious one is usually the correct answer. Over breakfast that Saturday morning, I said to Lisa, I have a lot of work today. Just telling you, I'll be gone most of the day so you can invite your lover over. Lisa looked totally shocked, unable to form words. You know the guy who loves having his balls sucked? Want to tell me about him? She ran to the bedroom, sobbing. I walked out to my truck. The jobs weren't going to do themselves. I had lied. I was only going to work until lunchtime, and yes, the dumb bitch had fallen for it. When I got home, there was Bill's truck in the driveway. When I walked in, they were on opposite ends of the couch, a box of tissues between them, and maybe 40 used tissues on the floor. Bill stood up to meet me. Jim, he managed to say just before my fist exploded in his face. He went down hard, blood streaming from his nose and mouth. No need to apologize, my best friend. Shiz your problem now, Lisa. Pack your stuff and get out, you cheating slut. I never want to see your face again as long as I live. As she started to speak, I yelled, I don't want to hear your lies. Just pack and get out. You can get the rest later. It took just a few minutes for her to emerge with a bag, and Bill had managed to get as far as the couch, mopping up the blood. Right, get out of my house. You'll hear from my lawyer next week. I held the door open. Lisa couldn't look at me, but Bill tried to speak, so I punched him again, and he got the message. They left in Bill's truck. I spent the rest of the day researching divorce and dissolving a company. I went to see my divorce lawyer, Ann Collins, and before getting into it, I asked her what I needed to do to dissolve my partnership with the man who fucked my wife. She told me she'd bring her husband Mark into the meeting, as company law was his specialty. The divorce was simple: no kids, separate finances, no shared assets other than the business. The complication was the business. It started before I married Lisa, and she had signed a prenup acknowledging it as a non-marital asset. Mark read our business agreement and declared it simple to dissolve. Jim, you can sell your half of the business to anyone. If you want it to survive, sell it to Bill. Make him pay dearly for it. If you want to damage it, sell to a larger company that will liquidate it. The downside is your employees might suffer. We had 5 guys working with us. Good guys. I didn't want to see them hurt. The other option was to walk away and let the business fail, but I couldn't do that. My parents guaranteed my loan. I couldn't stick them with it. Kate was to be served divorce papers at her workplace, and Bill was to be served notice to dissolve our partnership. The next few days I didn't go to work. Bill called, emailed, but I ignored him. I didn't care about the business anymore. Then my phone exploded with messages from Lisa and Bill. I sent them a photo of my raised middle finger. Kate hadn't tried to talk to me since Saturday. She knew our marriage was over. That evening they showed up at my house. She used her key to let them in. I started punching Bill again. Please, Jim, we need to talk, he pleaded. Kate doesn't want me. She loves you. I don't want her either. I'm not the settling down type. You need to get past this and get the business running. I looked at him. I'm selling my half to Cooper's Electrical. They offered a good price. I'll talk to you at the office tomorrow in front of our staff. I'm selling to the highest bidder. You have 30 days to make a satisfactory buyout offer. I took the door key from Lisa and locked the door behind them. At the office, I gathered everyone together. They deserved to know what was happening. Bill sat tight-lipped as I started. Guys, I have bad news. My wife Lisa and Bill here have been having an affair for at least 2 months. If I find out anyone here knew, there will be a reckoning. Assuming you didn't know, here's the deal. I'm selling my half of the business. Bill can't meet my price, so I'm selling to Cooper's Electrical. They might close this business and maybe take on some of you, but maybe not. I'm sorry, but I can't stay in business with Bill. I need to get out from under the debt and start again somewhere else. Now, if you will excuse me, I have to talk to Bill about our options. When the office cleared, Bill erupted. For fuck's sake, Jim, did you need to go nuclear? Surely we can sort this out. Lisa doesn't want me, she loves you. I don't want her either. I'm not the settling down sort. You need to get past this and get the business up and running properly. I smiled coldly. Yeah, I hate Coopers, but not as much as I hate you. The clock is running on your 30 days. What, 24 or 25 left? Then believe me, I will sell to them, and I hope they close you down. You will not get 1 day longer than that deadline. If you have not started trying to raise finance, you're a bigger fool than I took you for. One more thing before I go. I will not do one more piece of work for this company. It's all on you. If you'd worked harder instead of fucking my wife, maybe we wouldn't be having this talk, you snake. And another thing, do right by Lisa or I'll do some serious damage to you. Got it? Bill tried again. Please, Jim, you know I need you. I can't run this without you. Let's try and get past this. My raised middle finger as I walked out gave him the answer. I arrived home to find a message from my lawyer. Lisa had asked for a meeting tomorrow afternoon and she wanted to bring her father and her lawyer, who happened to be the very creep who had hit on her at work. She seemed to have fallen from the top of the stupid tree and hit every branch on the way down. I agreed to the meeting. The next day, I arrived early to speak to my lawyer, but she had nothing to suggest other than to let the other side talk and see what was on their mind. Lisa could barely make eye contact. Her father, John, was his usual solid self, sincere and honest. Sorry to meet under these circumstances, Jim. Please just keep an open mind. I shook his hand warmly. Good to see you, John. Her lawyer was another matter. I took an instant dislike to him. He had no sooner been introduced to me than he said, Right, Jim, let's get this nonsense sorted out and get you two back together. I gave him a stern look. That is not going to happen, Gibson. Call me Mr. Wilson. I released my grip and he nodded. My lawyer said, Mrs. Wilson, please tell us why you called this meeting. The terms of the divorce are fair, and your husband has no wish to reconcile with you after your treacherous adultery. Gibson jumped in. I'm sorry, but that is a gross overstatement of the facts. I cut him off. No, Gibson, it was an accurate statement of the facts. Are you here to bullshit or help this meeting along? Finding her voice, Lisa said, Please, everyone, I can answer for myself. I asked for this meeting because I don't want a divorce. I love my husband despite what I've done. Please, Jim, sit down and talk to me and let me try to explain myself. I was about to bite her head off when John interjected. Please, Jim, just talk to her, the two of you alone. That's all I ask. John had always treated me well, as had his wife, Mary. I respected him, so I nodded. Okay, John, but just one meeting and that's it. I won't change my mind, but I'll do this out of respect for you and Mary. I have no respect left for Lisa. My lawyer spoke up. There's no problem if you two meet at any time. However, I advise we discuss any objections to the terms of the petition for divorce, so that we all know where we stand. If your discussion proves fruitless, are there any objections to the terms of the divorce? My client feels the terms are fair. However, she reserves the right to seek court-appointed counseling. Okay, duly noted. Then our meeting is over if there are no objections to terms to discuss. Leaving the office, Lisa and her father approached me. John again thanked me. God, I really liked him. You couldn't have a better father-in-law. Every look he gave me was laced with apologies for his daughter's behavior. I shook his hand again and invited Lisa to call at 5:00 p.m. the next day. I told her all the rest of her things were boxed and ready to go if she wanted to ask her father to bring her over. At 5:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. Lisa stood there. Her father sat in his car. Manners prompted me to invite him in and pour him a beer. But this was between Lisa and me. It had to be sorted out with no interference from anyone else. I suggested we use the dining table, the most formal setting the house provided. I wanted no misunderstanding. This was a business meeting. Lisa appeared nervous. She should have known nothing good would come of this. I've been crystal clear that what she had done was unforgivable. I wouldn't change my stance on that. A random stranger in a bar after too many drinks. Unlikely, but that might just get her a second chance after a lot of humble pie. But cheating with my best friend and business partner multiple times? She was insane if she thought that was even in the ballpark of forgiveness. But I had promised John I'd give her a hearing. What do you want to tell me, Lisa? that I love you, that I was in a bad place. I hated work. I hated that bastard who is now my divorce lawyer. I hated that you worked so hard. I knew it was so we could get in a place to start a family, but I felt lost. I hardly ever saw you. I did what I had promised not to do. So it's all my fault. And you just fell and landed on Bill's lap. Is that it, Lisa? Because that's bullshit that I'm not buying. No, Jim, that's not what I'm saying. I am trying to tell you that I was depressed. I've been to see Dr. Black and he'd given me antidepressants, but I couldn't bring myself to take them. I felt humiliated needing something like that when I had a good marriage with a great man and great life stretching out in front of me. You know I wanted to start a family. You said we couldn't. And I saw nothing but that job I hate and no sign of us starting the family I was so desperate for. You know this, Jim. We talked about it. You know how hard I was finding it. But you said we had to wait. I resented that so much. Well, everything she said there was true. She had been desperate for a family. I wanted one too, but the time wasn't right. She continued. One evening Bill called. When I told him you were working late again, he was amazed. He said he rarely worked late and couldn't understand why you would be. That's why you employ guys, he said. I started to think, were you just making up late jobs? Were you seeing someone when you could have been home with me? I already felt depressed and this hit me hard. If your partner isn't working late, why were you, Jim? I broke down in tears and Bill comforted me, just like the big brother he's always seemed to me. Then I suddenly reached for him and kissed him. It was me, Jim, not Bill. I reacted to his kindness and got carried away. That's how it started. My fault. I felt him get hard against me. I needed the affection and it went on from there. Not supposed to happen. We called it off twice, both saying we couldn't do this to you, but I kept begging him. My depression was in charge and I needed the comfort. That Saturday you came home at lunchtime. We hadn't done anything, just talked and I cried. That was it. No more. We had to stop. We decided it had to be over. Then you walked in and everything turned to shit. Jim, I know how badly Bill and I have hurt you, but you need to know we don't love each other, but both of us do love you. We can't undo what we did, but we both beg you to think this over and please give both of us another chance. I looked at her. I had no idea how well she thought her speech had played out with me. There was very little sign of hope in her eyes. Just as well for what she had said held very little water for me. All it had taken to snap her out of her depression had been my best friend's affection. That, in summary, was what she was selling. I had no idea why she thought there was any way back for her. You have a very strange way of showing your love for me, Lisa. None of that excuse makes me feel any better about either of you. Both of you are cheating scum. I want nothing to do with either of you now. I've listened to you, hoping you might have something to say that would make me feel you were worthwhile. But you are not. You're just cheating trash. I want nothing to do with you ever again. Then the tears started again, but I was past listening, past caring. Just sign the divorce papers, Lisa. Then we can get on with our lives. I will never, and I mean never, forgive you. You don't seem to understand what cheating with my best friend means to me. It is the end. Full stop. Nowhere to go. Lisa, I didn't think it was possible to fall out of love with you, but you have achieved that. I feel nothing but revulsion for you. Pure, unadulterated disgust. You make my skin crawl. I will never be able to think fondly of you again if I live to be 100. I led her to the door, and she sobbed all the way. I caught her father's eye and just shook my head sadly toward him. He nodded his understanding and got out of the car, wrapping his arms around her. He softly said, "Okay, what a mess," and put her in the car. He came with me to retrieve the rest of Lisa's things, and we loaded the car while she sat sobbing. Then he drove her out of my life again. John and I shook hands for the final time. In all honesty, I had a greater lump in my throat saying goodbye to this decent man than I had dismissing his daughter. I respected his calm support for her, but his acceptance of the inevitable. A good man who certainly had not raised his daughter to be unfaithful. Now to deal with Bill. Halfway through the 30-day notice period, Bill called me. I really didn't want to talk to him, but both he and I, plus 6 decent men, had skin in the game and the business had to be sorted out. "Bill, what do you want?" "If it's not about selling the business, I'm hanging up. Relax, Jim, it's the business. I've spoken to the bank. How much are you looking for your share? 200 grand. What? You only paid 100 grand. Be reasonable, Jim. I can't pay that. I just don't have it. You know things are going well, but cash flow is tight. Are you stupid, Bill? You can't buy it out of cash flow. You need to raise capital yourself. You're buying the business. It's not buying itself. You are a dumbass. I'll be doing you a favor selling to Coopers. You'll run it into the ground. Jim, I've tried to tell you I need you, and so do the 5 guys who work for us. I'm sorry for what happened. I'm truly sorry. But you have to help us. 150. I laughed at him. That is just what I'm hoping for, my former best friend. 200 is what Coopers have offered me. If you beat it, I won't go back to them for a counteroffer. Not for you. Understand that. I hope to see you bankrupt. But for the futures of the rest of the guys. I hung up. A week later, he called me again. I'm begging you, Jim. The maximum I can raise is 180,000. Would you consider keeping a small share? I hung up. As deadline day approached, Bill called again. Okay, I've got it. I'll give you the 200 grand. I hung up. What the hell, man? I met your price. 200 grand. Why did you hang up? I told you that was Cooper's bid, that you had to beat it. Do it or I sell to Cooper's. Jim, for fuck's sake, tell me what I need to do. I can't raise any more. 200,005 will buy it. You want it? That is the price. Okay, you got it. I hung up. On deadline day, my lawyer confirmed that the funds had been received. I was out. Nothing to keep me here. I planned to tidy up my loose ends after the divorce and move on somewhere else. After all, a good electrician is always in demand. A few months had passed before I got a court date for the divorce hearing. I hoped it would be cleared up, and then I'd leave town for a new life, leave this mess behind me. Yeah, that was going to happen. Everything started well. It was agreed that the terms were acceptable to both parties. Then the spanner was thrown into the works. Lisa's slimeball lawyer said, Mrs. Wilson requests the court to order counseling. You've got to be kidding me, I shouted. The judge called for silence. Mr. Wilson, you will not use that language in my court. I will consider reasons for counseling. I apologized, and Ann Collins rose to speak on my behalf. Counseling will achieve nothing due to the egregious nature of the betrayal. In this case, my client's wife having an affair over at least 2 months. My client has no intention of reconciliation with her. He has made that abundantly clear to her. There is no prospect of forgiveness, never mind reconciliation. Counseling would be a futile waste of time. Mr. Gibson stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Wilson would like to address yourself if possible. So be it. Mrs. Wilson, you may speak. What will counseling achieve? Lisa rose. She looked frail, not at all well. I hadn't seen her in months, but she looked a shadow of the woman I once loved. Your Honor, I did a terrible thing to my husband, I know that, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life, no matter what happens here today. I know, too, that he thinks he hates me now, that it's hard to live with. I feel him falling apart mentally and physically. I'm taking antidepressants, but they are not helping. I just need one thing. I need my husband to love me again. Without that, I am lost. When I did what I did, I was in a depression, wasn't thinking straight, and was emotionally lower than I've ever been. Well, until now, that is. Now, life is not worth living. Your Honor, I need the chance to convince him that I love him, and all I've ever wanted since I met him is to love him, to be the mother of his children, and to live the rest of my life with him. Please, Your Honor, give me that chance. The judge considered her words. Mrs. Wilson, I hear a lot of words spoken in this court. It is my job to decide their value. I feel that I have just listened to very heartfelt, contrite words. You have my sympathy for your plight, madam, but I have to decide if counseling would achieve anything positive for the marriage. Mrs. Wilson, it takes 2 to tango. I see no evidence that your husband can be swayed. Mr. Wilson, would you accept counseling? Your Honor, I mean no disrespect, but no, I have no interest in counseling or reconciliation with Lisa. In fact, if ordered, I would reluctantly leave myself open to jail time rather than attend such meetings. Things have gone too far, Your Honor. I am somewhat moved by what Lisa has said today, but the betrayal was too complete. I cannot forgive it or forget it, and I can't even consider living with her again. As I thought, Mr. Wilson, this is a sad case. I feel Mrs. Wilson has a genuine love for her husband, but that is not enough to force him into counseling. I'm granting the divorce and no counseling is ordered, and that was it, or should have been. 3 weeks later, disaster struck. Jim, it's John. Can you get to the hospital? What is happening, John? Why are you calling? Jim, I'm sorry to ask, but it's Lisa. She may not make it, and she is asking to see you. Oh, be there, John. I arrived at the hospital and asked where Lisa was. I was asked if I was a relative and explained we were recently divorced, but that she had asked for me. John saw me and met me. Jim, I don't know how to tell you, so I'll just spit it out. Jim, she is pregnant. She's in danger of losing the baby and her own life. She hasn't been eating right. She's the first pregnant woman I know that has lost weight during her pregnancy. I think she is dying, Jim. She wants to talk to you. Please, Jim, talk to her. I was taken to the emergency room and she looked awful, barely conscious of what was happening around her. But when I took her hand, she sadly said, "Sorry, Jim, I can't keep our child alive. I'm trying, but my body is useless. I haven't wanted to live. I didn't know I was pregnant when I decided to starve myself. I'm sorry. I'm killing our child. I didn't mean to, just myself." She could see the conflict in my eyes. She obviously knew I was thinking the baby might be Bill's. Then she said, "The baby is yours, Jim. I made him use a condom every time." Then she lost consciousness. I felt my cheeks wet with tears. I surprised myself that I obviously had not expunged all feelings for her. Did this make things different? I supposed it did. But would either of them survive? If not, it would make no difference at all. The machine she was hooked up to started to go into alarm mode when she lost consciousness. I was shooed out of the room as the medics went to work. Outside sat John. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years since I'd seen him at the courthouse. One word to sum him up: haggard. "Well, Jim, I'm sorry. When I discovered she was pregnant, I just assumed that it was probably Bill's baby. But she was definite. That was not possible. She had cheated, but she never wanted anyone's children but yours. I didn't feel I had the right to come to you about it. If I was wrong, I'm sorry. It's been tough trying to get her to take care of herself. Martha has surprised me, and not in a good way. She felt so let down by what Lisa did to you. It seems like she isn't interested in her daughter. She seems to have given up on her. Jim, I don't want your sympathy. I'm just trying to explain things. I'm feeling between a rock and a very hard place. I'm at my wit's end, to tell you the truth. Now this." I patted John's arm. He was a good man in a bad place due to the actions of others, trying to do the right thing for everyone, even if he wasn't getting everything right. It came from a good place. I hurt for him. We sat for 3 or 4 hours, then a doctor approached and asked who was the next of kin. John said, "You can talk to both of us together. What is the situation?" "Well, the immediate crisis has passed, and both mother and baby are hanging on. And gentlemen, I mean hanging on. Neither are in good health. I fear for the mother, but the baby, I'm afraid, may have health issues. If it survives to full term, we will obviously be keeping her for the next number of days. We are going to work on getting her body back in some sort of better shape to support the pregnancy. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but I have to ask, how has she become malnourished to this extent?" John explained the situation of the breakup and divorce, Lisa's lack of motivation to keep going, and then belatedly discovering that she was pregnant. "Okay, so you, sir, are the baby's father, I assume," the doctor said, looking at me. "So it appears, doctor. But until a few hours ago, I knew nothing of it. If the child survives, I'll want a DNA test, and if it is my child, I'll step up to support it." I looked at John and added, "I'm sorry, John. I'll support the child, but I cannot get back with Lisa. There is just too much hurt." The doctor looked at me seriously and said, "Sir, it may be none of my business, but I'll tell you this so we are clear. It's really not my place as a doctor to say this, but man to man. I'll tell you, judging by the condition of your ex-wife and what her father has told me, it would not be a surprise to me if you became a single parent within a year." I shrank into my seat. Great, a doctor trying to guilt-trip me into taking her back. I said nothing for now. It turned out she was 6 months pregnant and there was barely a suggestion of a baby bump. That poor kid must be having a hard time. Was it my kid? Quite possibly. It seemed likely that Lisa, in her depressed state, had screwed up her birth control. And certainly we were having a lot of sex. Whether it was true or not that she had made Bill use condoms, the number of times we had sex made me the likely father. If it was my kid, could I walk away? Would I want to walk away? What sort of relationship could I stand to have with the mother of the child? Life was becoming very complicated just when I thought I had extricated myself from my problems and was preparing to get out of town. Amazingly, mother and child survived under the specialist care they received once her pregnancy and difficulties were understood. The baby was born a little over 4 pounds. Very light, but much lighter babies had survived and thrived. The child, a boy, was surprisingly otherwise healthy. Lisa gained weight under supervision and came through relatively undamaged, though there was a question on what damage she may have wrought on herself and her future ability to conceive. Unluckily, from my viewpoint, a DNA test confirmed that I was the father of the child, a complication I had dreaded for the last 3 months since becoming aware of the possibility. I'd always thought fatherhood would have been one of the joys of my life, but the experience was seriously tainted. It appeared likely that this would mean a lifetime involvement with a woman I could no longer tolerate. Nothing had changed. I had no wish to ever see her again, much as I hadn't wished her dead when that was a real possibility. 3 or 4 days after the birth, John once again was the one to contact me. "Jim, I'm calling about the baby. Lisa wants to know if you want to have a say in deciding the boy's name." "John, I hadn't even thought about it. We're divorced. I didn't expect to be consulted. One thing I would like is that she doesn't use my surname. Perhaps she can use your name, Kelly. Does that sound reasonable?" "Jim, I'm sorry, but I think you need to talk to her. She is still calling herself Lisa Wilson. It could cause problems for the child if its name was different from both mother and father. Besides, don't you want to see your son, Jim?" I hesitated, thought about it, then decided this was something I had to do. "She's still staying with you, John? Yeah, okay. I'll come over tonight after dinner, 7:00 p.m. Okay. See you then, Jim." I arrived on the dot of 7 and John let me in. I hadn't seen Mary in many months. She looked drawn and suddenly a lot older, just as John had. 2 good people put in a difficult position. Mary hugged me and whispered in my ear, "It's not how we raised her, Jim." Then they left me alone with Lisa and the baby. "Hello, Jim. Thank you for coming. Would you like to hold the baby?" It wasn't the little guy's fault. I took him in my arms and looked at him. Big mistake. I suddenly felt what parents are supposed to when they hold their child. The emotion took over, and I found it hard to breathe for a while. He looked up and gazed into my eyes. I had no idea what he was thinking, but it probably revolved around a familial recognition of sorts and a need for protection. I was hooked. I started to smile at him. Shit, I had no idea if this was what she expected to happen, but she too was smiling. "He's cute, isn't he?" I nodded in agreement. Then my heart broke again. "Fuck it, Lisa. Why did you do this to us? We could have been perfect. This could have been our dream, the best days of our lives." She teared up and said, "We still can be, Jim. Can't you learn to forgive me? I was seriously unwell. I made a really bad series of choices. Please, Jim, please try." I tried to hand him back to her, intending to flee and not come back. But she wouldn't take him. "Damn it, Lisa, take your son. I need to get out of here." I was close to panic. "No, Jim, we need to talk. If nothing else, the boy needs a name." "But you are not a coward. You have never run from anything. Please talk to me. We have to work things out, for his sake and ours too." I sat down again, still holding my son. This was going to be difficult. I was lost and had no idea what to do. Having looked into his eyes, I knew I couldn't abandon him. James Kelly Wilson. "How does that sound?" I said quietly. She smiled and said she liked that. The 2 best men in her life. It was on the tip of my tongue to ask if she didn't prefer Bill as a name, but I held it back. "Lisa, I have a problem. I want him in my life, but I don't want you. I'll never forgive what you did, whether you were ill or not. You did that, and did it repeatedly with my former best friend. I can't live with that, Lisa, and I can't live with you. I can't live with someone I don't love. You need to think of some way we can work with this. I'll support my son, but that's it. Having sold my share of the business and planning to leave town, the arrival of a son made me reevaluate. I was going to hang around in the short term at least. So, although I still had a lump of money after repaying my loan and having my parents' guarantee canceled, I needed to work. Electrical work was all I knew, so I set up as a sole proprietor. I had my truck from our old business and had a sign maker redo the decal. The new business was Jim Wilson Electrical. If Bill didn't like it, he could spend money suing me if he could afford it. Nothing ever happened. But people knowing who I was, I soon had all the work I wanted. I set up a payment for child support for James Jr. Nothing was court-ordered. I set up an amount I thought was reasonable. Lisa didn't argue. Without telling her, I also established a college fund for James Jr. If he was like his father and didn't want to go to college, he would get the money on his 25th birthday. Things were okay, but I was marking time for what? I had no idea. I'd planned to start fresh. That included my hopes of meeting someone new to share my life with. That was going to be more difficult back in our town, where many people knew who I was and what had happened to my marriage. So it was a pretty frustrating time for me. I worked, visited my son, and did very little else. I had worked out visitation with James Jr., but nothing was satisfying. John, my ex-father-in-law, was still the go-between, and often it was him who I met when I picked up James Jr. I made it clear I wanted as little contact with Lisa as possible. I had no thoughts of ever forgiving her, nor of having any relationship with her. 6 months later, John told me that Lisa again seemed to be struggling mentally. Like me, her life was filled with work and James Jr. John said she had not dated at all since becoming a mother, said she had no interest, and rebuffed all approaches to her, including, interestingly, an approach from Bill. That caught my attention. I'd assumed that would be her natural future, even though Bill had said he didn't want her. Maybe he just wanted her as a casual hookup, an uncomplicated one at that. No need to wine and dine her. I thought it was time that snake felt a little more pain. I was concerned that if Lisa was again spiraling down, it would have implications for James Jr. I even wondered if I should seek to have her deemed an unfit mother and seek full custody. Really? Was I ready for that in my life? Full-time single parenthood? Probably not. So, what was the alternative? I needed to see that she stayed healthy and fit to be his mother. How? Whatever way I looked at it, that seemed impossible without me having a lot more dealings with her than I wanted, than my wounded pride would allow. She had cheated on me. I couldn't possibly get past that. Forgiveness. Forget it, surely. Of course you know where this is going, don't you? Guy gets cheated on, divorces wife is pregnant, it's his kid, he takes her back, yada, yada, yada. Could I be a man to backslide on my harsh judgment? I never thought so. But life sometimes throws odd things at you, circumstances you'd never expect to face. Surely the core of our humanity is adapting to our changing reality to survive. Shit, bad news comes in bunches. John had told me that Lisa seemed to be struggling again. Now the news on John was bad. He had suffered a small stroke. Nothing serious or causing permanent damage, but a warning shot that the poor guy needed to take life easier. With Mary struggling to cope with her daughter's infidelity, John had borne the brunt of making sure she and the baby were cared for. Now what? Well, she was no longer my wife, but he was my son. I had to step up in some way. We had a non-family family conference, and it was agreed that everyone but John needed to take more responsibility. Lisa needed to stick to her meds and meet her responsibilities as a mother. I had to do more to support her, which John had mainly done, and Mary had to step up and help her husband unless she wanted to risk losing him to an early death. The thought of being more involved with Lisa was not pleasant. It made me angry. But I was a father, after all. Time to be one, not just when it suited me. To make it work, I decided I had to cut Lisa some slack to make life easier for her, and thereby make caring for my son easier. I started to take pre-prepared meals to their house twice a week and stayed with them for the evening, leaving when James Jr. went down for the night. I cooked basic meals one day every weekend. I wasn't anyone's idea of a cook, but I wasn't poisoning anyone either. My meatloaf was actually not bad. Needless to say, this meant that I was talking to Lisa much more than had been the case for about a year when the shit hit the fan. It started very slowly. Brief, stilted conversations. But as time went by, we spoke more as friends would, with the added interest being our shared child. As we grew more comfortable in each other's company, I found that I struggled to maintain my dislike for her. I wouldn't say I was growing fond of her by any means, but I had rediscovered that empathy for another person was not too challenging. I made it my business to ensure that she stuck to her meds regime, and slowly she began to emerge from her latest funk. It really didn't take a rocket scientist to see what medicine she needed. All it took was some smiles and a few kind words from me. She had been almost literally dying from lack of affection, from being treated as a pariah, and of course, when people treat you that way, from lack of self-esteem. Some decent time spent as a family with her son perked her up. And really quickly, I began to ponder, is it right that I treated a woman I loved with all my heart like I had? She had broken my heart. She'd given me cause. Many men will tell you if a wife cheats once, never mind a 2-month affair. It should lead to banishment. But am I not a better man than that? Should I really treat a woman I've loved and now have a child with as utterly worthless? I began to think that, much as I had been wronged, perhaps I'd overdone the retribution on her. After all, I'd beaten my ex-friend badly on 2 occasions. I'd put him in financial difficulties by threatening to sell the company to an aggressive buyer. I'd opened a new business and taken several customers he'd paid. I might yet make him pay more and pay regularly, but I'd certainly punish my former friend. Should her punishment be so much more complete than his? Well, of course, we had been married. She'd lost that. Shed had to move back in with her parents. She was stuck in a job she hated now with no end in sight. And of course, she had lost the love she claimed was the only one she wanted. And as she never dated, she was living a lonely life. She'd suffered. We all had. Lisa, Bill, and I had all had our lives turned upside down. There were no winners in what had been a very tight friendship trio, now irreparably ripped apart. Bill was dead to me. I thought Lisa was too, until the complication called James Jr. arrived. I'd had a measure of revenge on both sinners. When was enough enough? At one stage, I thought the answer to that would be right about the time hell froze over. Now I had some doubt. I had a son to think of, a complete innocent. I had to man up for him. His mother was borderline depressed since her affair and my discovery, certainly since our divorce and her pregnancy when both she and James Jr. could have died. I was reminded of the words that Doctor had said, man to man rather than as a medic. Words to the effect that I could be a single parent within a year, giving a clear warning that Lisa was a potential suicide, either deliberately or by default, by simply not taking care of herself. To top it off, one of the best men I'd ever met, my ex-father-in-law John, had almost run himself into the ground and ruined his own health by trying to take care of everyone else's problems. Yes, time to man up indeed. I needed to talk to Lisa to make sure she understood exactly what I was proposing. I went to John and Mary's house earlier than usual the following Saturday. I needed time to talk alone with Lisa before making my usual meatloaf for everyone. John and Mary discreetly gave us space, taking James Jr. with them. Lisa, I have been thinking. What we are doing is not giving John the best chance to recover his health. Quite frankly, he doesn't need the hassle of you and James Jr. under his roof and me being here 3 nights a week. So I have a plan. I'm thinking you, me, and James Jr. should find somewhere to live. I see you smiling, but don't get this wrong. You need to understand that this will be a purely platonic relationship. I've not suddenly gotten past what you and that low-life Bill did to me. I am rationalizing what it means now in our new circumstances, but it is neither forgiven nor forgotten. It almost certainly never will be. I'm suggesting this purely out of care and respect for your father, who has never been short of wonderful to me. This is not for you, although I think it will result in it being easier for both of us to give James Jr. the care he needs. I've also accepted that your issues need someone to keep you straight with your meds, and I'm prepared to be that person for the benefit of our son, who needs both of his parents. If you form a relationship at any stage with another man, this setup would be finished. We are divorced, but I will not be your babysitter while you go out and see other men. Is that clear? And can you live like I'm describing?" Lisa couldn't keep the smile off her face. "Yes, Jim, I would agree to anything to be with you and James Jr. every day. But I do accept that you are setting boundaries. I will abide by anything you wish. But I tell you, we may be platonic, but it will not stop me trying to get your interest again. I'm not talking about flaunting myself. I'm talking about behaving like a good wife should do, minus the physical part. Unless you ever change your mind. If you do, you will find me willing. If not, I'll take whatever relationship is available with you." And so we got a place and the three of us moved in. It was a tense way to live, two people who had been so much in love, one claiming she still was, but leading a celibate lifestyle together. Then for me, being 247 with my son was both a delight and a challenge. Apart from work, James Jr. seemed to take every waking hour until he went down for the night. Fortunately, James Jr. was a great kid. Despite the problems in pregnancy, he seemed incredibly healthy. Before long, he had reached the supposed perfect weight for his age, and he slept almost every night for a long 8 to 9 hours. This sort of kid dreams are made of. Awake, he was a great little bundle of energy. As time went on, he walked at 10 months and was speaking a handful of words at 14 months. With their domestic life seemingly appearing perfect, despite my continued distrust of Lisa, and sometimes blatant antipathy toward her. On bad days, a stranger would have considered us a normal, happy couple. Of course, in our 3-bedroom house, everyone had their own bedroom, the adults using theirs to make the best of relieving the frustration of a celibate lifestyle. I knew that I was not bound to celibacy as I insisted, and for Lisa, but something kept me from looking elsewhere. I had decided if I did get involved with someone, either short or long term, I would keep it away from the house. John was now more like the man we were all used to, with the respite of not having to be primary care for Lisa and James Jr. He was, to all intents and purposes, back to himself and being the strong figure who had helped his family through a big crisis. Mary, too, appeared to be emerging from her funk with Lisa. Of course, it was not a situation that could last. It was contrived. Two people in their early 30s leading a celibate life. Well, of course, it wouldn't last. It was Lisa who cracked. She had her sex toys and got herself off regularly, but she missed having proper intimacy with a real man. She'd noticed me becoming edgy and a bit withdrawn over a couple of months. The controlled, emotionless living arrangements they had grown used to were clearly wearing him down. Lisa decided to address the elephant in the room. "Jim, I love you, and I know you as well as you know yourself. I've never seen you so frustrated. I'm scared of what it might do to us. These last 9 months have been a big relief to me, getting to live with you again, even if the lack of anything physical between us is killing me with need. If you go off the rails, I'm so scared that I can't cope without you." I understood that she had called it right, but I wasn't about to confirm it. I grabbed my keys and said I'd be back later. In all the months since we had moved into the house, this was the first time I had gone out before James Jr. was down for the night. Another sign that the pressure cooker was getting dangerously high. Without any thought, I gravitated to a bar, the same one where I often hung out with Bill. It had been the best part of a year since we had talked. I hoped it would be many more years without seeing my former best friend, but I got it wrong. This was not the place I should have come. I was no sooner at the bar when I caught sight of Bill in a mirror behind the bar. Bill was making his way toward me, and I was about to turn and leave, but it was too late. "Can I buy you a drink, stranger?" Bill asked, holding out his hand, offering to shake. It was clear this was Bill holding out an olive branch I had no intention of accepting. "Get out of my face, traitor. Come on, man, get over it. I've told you 1,000 times I was a fool and I was wrong. I am genuinely sorry. Jim, please have a drink with me. I hear you and Lisa are back together and have a kid. That's great news. I'm delighted for you. Fuck you, Bill. We live together. We are not back together. We never will be because of you. But yes, we share a son. We are not married and never will be again. You saw to that, my best friend. I thought you would have made your moves on her. Then I remembered you're the sort of creep who wants to dip his wick but hasn't the balls for a long-term commitment. Jim, when you divorced her, I did try to get with her again. I was willing to commit long-term. I decided she was worth the effort. But you know what? She told me that you were the only man she wants to settle down with. You get that? You dumped her. You told her you hated her, but Jim, she loves only you. If you weren't such a hard ass, you'd have a woman who knows she fucked up but will never do it again. Jim, I know I am probably the worst best friend in history, but after all our years together, I only want what's best for you. That's what Lisa is, the best thing you could have in your life. Now I know I'm probably making you angry, and if you want to take me outside and beat on me again, then like every other time, I won't throw anything back at you. I'll take what you want to give because I've hurt you enough for one lifetime. I'll never do it again. You know how you suddenly hear something from someone and you don't doubt a word of it? That was one of those moments. It was nowhere close to being something that would rekindle a broken friendship, but it rang true every word. And it was enough that I decided I'd extracted all the revenge I needed on Bill. I looked at Bill, nodded once, and turned and left the bar. Arriving home, I called quietly to Lisa, but got no response. I called quietly so as not to wake James Jr. I went over to her closed bedroom door and knocked again. No response. So I slipped inside to find her quietly sobbing. Almost certainly she was in fear of what had caused me to walk out earlier. I slipped off my clothes, slipped under the covers, and found Lisa naked. I pulled her to me and kissed her hard. She moaned through the kiss and spread herself on her back as I kissed her. I stopped, lifted her chin toward her, and said the immortal words, "If you ever do that again, I'll kill you," as I moved closer. Lisa just kept repeating, "Never, never again, I love you." And that's the story of Jim, a man who faced betrayal from his wife Lisa and best friend Bill, but found a way to navigate the chaos for the sake of his son, James Jr. What would you do if you were in Jim's shoes? Could you ever forgive such a betrayal, or would you move on? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories. Until next time, take care. The stale smell of the waiting room did nothing to settle the sickness in my stomach. I glanced around and then back down at my feet, wondering what I was really doing here. To my left sat my stunning wife, Emily. She looked as radiant as ever, a beauty that never failed to give me butterflies. To my right sat my daughter, Sarah, who in many ways was my savior. My thoughts drifted back to the day I met each of them. I was a different man back then. Mr. Parker's voice called out, bringing me back to the room. "We will be ready for you in around 20 minutes, he said. "The other witness has just taken the stand." I nodded. It would be the first time in over a year that I would come face to face with my ex-wife, the woman I was married to for 12 years of my life. But since then, so much has changed. I will start from the day my life changed forever. It was a normal spring day in Maplewood, Ohio. I was returning home from my job at the Maplewood Utility Company. I hated the job and had pretty much been forced into it by Lauren, my ex-wife. "It is more secure and financially rewarding," she would say. "It is better than construction," was usually the next comment. I should have known earlier that all she seemed to care about was money and social status. I do not want to say too much about Lauren, other than at 36, she was still the most beautiful girl in the world to me. She was smart, funny, and loved me to death. From the moment we met, I always thought she was out of my league. I was working construction back home in Fairview when we met. I was tall and quite good-looking, with a permanent tan from always being outdoors. From the moment we began dating, we were always together. I was her protector, her entertainer, and she saw past my lack of academia and only seemed to love me with more passion. When she finished her master's degree, we moved back to her hometown of Maplewood and eventually married. Her parents were not thrilled by me at all, and they made no attempt to hide their dislike. Both she and her old friends felt she was too good for me and wondered why she would marry beneath herself. I was a good-looking dumbass, according to her father. Nonetheless, we were happy and loved each other more than anything. I was an only child and both of my parents had died in my late teens, so Lauren became my whole world. I found a job in construction and Lauren got a very good job at a finance company owned by a friend of her father's. When the recession hit in 2009, I lost my job. And it was Lauren's salary that pulled us through the bad times. This only succeeded in making her parents love me more, if that was possible. It did put a strain on our marriage. Well, I guess it would when the people you love and socialize with tell you that your husband is a loser. Sadly, it also affected my friendships. Back home in Fairview, I was now moving in different circles. According to them, of course, my best friend Danny was always there for me. He was more like my brother, and his folks helped me through the loss of my own parents. It was Lauren who managed to convince me to take the job at the utility company. Like I said, I hated it indoors. Computers, talking to people on the phone in a fake voice. It was my idea of hell. But I made the effort for Lauren. At first, we both wanted to have children one day, but having a successful career and being seen to have one was more important to Lauren. Image, wealth, and status really did not bother me. But I did everything Lauren wanted, and I even tried to become the person Lauren wanted me to be. Sadly, when you stop being yourself, things tend to go downhill, and you eventually become an unhappy person. I was no longer the chirpy Fairview builder who loved to have fun and be around people. I became depressed most days. I put on weight, stopped grooming, and rarely socialized, if ever. Yes, I was an overweight office worker married to a successful financial analyst who attended fancy dinners and cocktail parties with the Maplewood elite. I was not one of them. They knew it, and I knew it. I pulled into our driveway and was surprised to see Lauren's car in the garage. I got out of the car and walked over to the house with a feeling of impending dread. I did not know why, but as I entered the kitchen, Lauren sat at the table looking solemn yet assured. There were some papers in front of her, and as I was about to speak, she cut me off. "Mike, we need to talk." Those famous words hit me like a ton of bricks. I could see she was slightly nervous, but as I sat down, I saw no tears. "What is it, babe?" I asked. "Everything okay?" She steeled herself, cleared her throat as though preparing for a big speech. "I am sorry, Mike, but I want a divorce," she stated clearly and calmly. My heart sunk and my stomach knotted. I was speechless as it felt like someone had reached into my chest and grabbed my heart. That horrible feeling of sudden loss that I have experienced twice before is the worst feeling you can ever imagine. I looked at her and with a tremble in my voice managed to speak. "But why?" I stuttered. "I have fallen in love with somebody else," she said, looking at me with no sign of pity. I was shattered, but strangely, I did not feel shocked. The old Mike would have caused havoc, but he no longer existed. Lauren had seen to that. I was a shell of the man I used to be, and here she was, finishing me off with a final swipe of the sword. "How long?" I said huskily. "For months," she said as I just stared at her. "But now I want us to be together and get married," she declared with no thought for my feelings. I was looking at a woman I no longer recognized, and in reflection, she was looking at a man she no longer recognized. "I don't want to know the details, but I do want to know why," I said finally, afraid of what her answer may be. She wasted no time in answering. "Just look at yourself, Mike. You are not the man I married. You are overweight, unshaven for years, and when was the last time you had a decent haircut or purchased new clothes?" she said in a flurry of what must have been long, pent-up feelings. "You're a shell of that man I fell in love with, and let's be honest, you have never been on my intellectual level, have you?" she said in a mocking tone. "God knows how many times in the last decade I have had to defend you to my parents, friends, and colleagues, justified to them why we married in the first place," she continued, "and suddenly I wondered where the girl I fell in love with had disappeared to, and who this heartless creature was sitting before me. And Rick, I mean, my new man is younger than you, fit, attractive, and has a successful business and a big house close to Mommy and Daddy in Northwood." Every new word she spoke felt like a dagger piercing my body. "Do I know him?" I asked. He runs the gardening company that operates in the neighborhood. He is a sole trader at the moment. But we want to expand the business together, she added as I remained silent. She had finally finished and just sat there, anticipating another question, no doubt so she could crush me further. When I remained silent, she slid the papers towards me. Daddy and his attorney helped me to draft our divorce papers. I think it's a good deal for you, seeing as I paid the majority of the mortgage. Daddy recommended a 70-30 split in my favor for the house, which we can sell, as I will be moving in with Rick. I just let her. And she continued, I think a 5,050 split of our savings is only fair, and I will require no alimony, although I am sure I could fight for something if I wanted to. The arrogance and spite in her voice were now clear to me. How did I miss it all these years? I felt like a fool, and I guess she thought I always was one. Come on, let's be honest, Mike. I make way more than you do, and my new man makes plenty too. So I won't touch your 401k if you sign the papers and don't fight me for anything. She suddenly stopped speaking as I looked her dead in the eye. She must have seen a glimmer of the old Mike because she swallowed hard. I grabbed a pen and signed away 12 years of marriage. I rose from the table and went to our bedroom, packed up my possessions, and then returned. She was sitting at the table reading through the paperwork as I walked past her, through the door, and out of her life. What? Danny screamed. Is she effing crazy? To me, Danny is family, and sadly, over the last few years, I have neglected him. But as true brothers, we can see past any transgressions and will always be there for each other in our time of need. As we spoke about what had happened, I could hear someone in the background and Danny trying to silence them. Is that Kathy? I asked. What is she saying? She said good riddance to the stuck-up 304. Danny and Kathy had what you call no filter. What you see is what you get, and boy did I miss that. It's how I used to be. Hey Mike, I have a guy who Kathy knows who does these investigations on debtors for local companies. I can get him to take a look into this guy for you, see if the crap is legit and all, he asked in his usual brusque manner. I don't really care, Danny, I said despondently. This guy screws you over, steals your wife, and you just sit back and take it? Screw you, Mike, he said with his voice rising that Kathy and Danny must have realized it too. Sorry, bro. I am just as mad as hell, and I wish you were too, he said apologetically. It's okay, Danny. You're right and all. Do what you like, I said. I gave him the very few details I had on this new guy. He was the gardener for the neighborhood, so it wasn't too hard to get some more information if Kathy's guy wanted it. You need to get your head back in the game, Mike, and return to your old self again, he instructed before we eventually hung up. After I put the phone down, I lay back on the cheap motel bed and stared at the ceiling fan, worrying above my head. I tried to make sense of everything that had happened to my life, not only the last few hours, but the last 12 years. Sleep evaded me, so I made a grab for the bottle of Jack Daniels on the table and drank straight from the bottle. For the next few weeks, I did the same. Often I would call in sick at work or turn up drunk, the smell of booze leading me to be sent home. Everyone in the office was looking at me, snide comments made behind my back, and I felt like I was watching myself from above, just going through the motions of existence. I was recommended to a doctor, and although that helped, being signed off work gave me more time to think and dwell on the past. I never made it to the offices of Parker and Lane to finalize the divorce. A letter was sent to my office because nobody knew where I was, and nobody was going to bother looking. I knew that for sure. The letter contained the divorce settlement and a check for $150,000, my share of the house savings and house contents. The settlement declared everything, Lauren said at the kitchen table, and as I had not attended the meeting, it was finalized in absentia. I had no idea if all of this was legal and above board, but I had no fight left in me. Not enough, anyway, for Lauren and her powerful inner circle. A month had now passed since Lauren told me she wanted a divorce, and I had finally cashed the check into my account. I discovered all our other accounts had been closed, and Lauren had removed her name from our joint account. However, as I was walking aimlessly out of the bank, I heard a voice calling my name. I ignored it at first, but when I eventually turned to look, I saw Greg and Susan, my old neighbors. "Hey, Mike," Greg asked, walking up to me. "Sorry to hear about the divorce," he said nervously. Now Susan, his wife. She was a nosy neighbor and loved to gossip, and it did not take her long to pipe up. "I can't believe Lauren would leave you and remarry so quickly." I looked at her with surprise. I seemed to remember Lauren saying she wanted to marry the guy, but such was my state of mind at the time, I forgot about it. "Oh, you didn't know," Susan continued. "I had no idea," I said with an air of indifference. "We thought you guys were the real deal," Greg said. "Then we see she is married to this Richard Stone." It was the first time I had heard his full name, but as I looked at Susan, she seemed to recoil and cringe at the mere mention of his name. I ignored it as I suddenly thought I now had a surname to give to Danny's friend rather than Rick, the gardener from Maplewood. "He was the gardener who services your neighborhood," I said, offering information not asked for. As I did, I saw Greg swing around and face Susan, who by now had turned bright red. "A gardener?" he yelled at Susan, drawing stares from passers-by. "Why have you gone red, Susan?" he asked as I realized I had put my foot right in it. "No, Greg, no, never," Susan pleaded. "He tried it on with me once and I put him in his place." Greg was now red himself and looking pretty angry as Susan continued. "He is a sleaze, and every time he is due, I go out for a few hours to avoid him. I never told you because I knew you would be angry," she said, reaching for his hand and pleading with him. "We need to talk," he said before turning to me and apologizing. He grabbed her by the hand and marched her off down the sidewalk. "I guess that is one lost customer for Lauren and Richard's growing empire," I thought to myself, managing to raise a smile for the first time in a while. The news of the marriage did hit me hard. I slumped back into depression and reached for the bottle again. I thought I would have a good try at drinking myself to death. That way all the pain would go, and I wouldn't have to continue with my pointless existence. The next morning I rose from my motel bed and fell to the floor, vomiting all over myself. I had officially hit rock bottom. I crawled into the shower on my hands and knees and let the cold water rain down on me. As I emerged, I looked in the mirror, and what I saw reflecting back left me shocked. "Screw you," I shouted at the man looking back at me. "I need to get better." I fell to my knees and cried for the first time since my mother passed away. "I just want to be happy," I screamed into my hands. I knew something had to change. I walked into my office the following Monday and got down to some work. For some reason, my personal mail was on my desk. I guessed it was redirected there because nobody knew where I was living. As I read through what was mainly junk, I found a flyer for a local gym promising to get anybody in shape in 12 weeks. I snorted to myself, thinking it would take longer than that, but I thought, what the hell? Maybe this was the change I needed. That evening, as I entered the gym, I had no idea what the beautiful young instructor standing before me would think of this soul has been. At 39, I felt like an 80-year-old man. But as I stepped closer to her, she held out her dainty hand, which I gladly accepted. "I'm Lisa," she said. To say she thought I was a mess would have been an understatement, but within her beautiful brown eyes I saw a semblance of hope for me. They seemed to inject some energy into me, not lust or anything romantic, but honesty and compassion. So over the next week, I managed to move out of the motel and sign a lease on a small studio apartment in the city close to the gym. I decided to focus on my 12-week plan and see where life took me. I needed to lose around 50 pounds, and the best place to start was getting rid of all the unopened alcohol bottles amongst my belongings. I worked really hard. Over the following month, my life was nothing but work in the gym. Danny and Kathy also managed to visit a few times, no doubt to check up on me more than anything. But by the end of the month, and with constant encouragement from Lisa, I had already lost 14 pounds. The good thing about spending nearly every day in the gym was that I got to know Lisa a lot better. She agreed to coffee one evening after my session, and I found out a bit about her life. She was raised by a single mother and was attending a community college to become a full-time fitness coach and nutritionist. She certainly knew her stuff, and I warmed to her even more. I told her about my recent divorce and my old life in Fairview. I admitted to her that I hit rock bottom before signing up at the gym and meeting her. I tried my best not to come off as some desperate creep, but she was beyond her years in terms of compassion and emotional maturity. It wasn't until a few sessions later that I emerged from the showers and met her. I was blown away. Lisa was talking to a woman who at first sight looked like her sister Rachel. I know, but it is the truth. Lisa saw me looking and walked over to me before I could turn and walk away. "Mike, this is my mom, Rachel," she said, smiling. As Rachel held out her hand, our eyes met, and I felt a tide of embarrassment flood over me. My stomach knotted, and I was truly lost for words. The silence was now getting awkward. "It means he likes you, Mom," Lisa said, laughing and saving me in the process. "He's quiet when he likes someone," she added, as though she had known me my whole life. The truth is, I wasn't always a quiet, shy, and unassuming man. The years of what I now think to be emotional abuse will do that to you. Lisa left us to collect her things as Rachel and I started to talk. When Lisa returned, she invited me across the road for dinner. I hesitated at first, but her insistence made it hard to say no. I imagined that if she had a father, she would have him wrapped around her little finger. At dinner, Rachel was so warm and sweet I could tell the apple did not fall far from the tree. As the evening progressed, I relaxed in their company. There was no need for a show or pretentiousness. Rachel joked around, putting me at ease. We briefly touched on our past, and I guess Lisa filled her mother in on my life. Leaving that night, I felt better than I had in months. I even had Rachel's number in my phone after she insisted on sorting out the mess on top of my head. Reluctant at first, I capitulated, bringing the sweetest laugh from her. In the next couple of months, Rachel and I were inseparable. When we finally made love, the passion was intense and perfect every time. From then on, she was the only one in my mind, and finally my heart beat for another woman. We took it slow, wanting to ensure our feelings were real and build on trust. I took her back to my hometown, where Danny and Kathy fell in love with her immediately. In the kitchen, Kathy pulled me aside and said, "Now this is the woman for you, Mike. Do not let her go." I assured her there was no chance of that. Lisa confirmed I was back to my ideal weight. I was proud and grateful to Lisa and Rachel for helping me get to this point. My new haircut, along with surrendering my beard, contributed to some of the weight loss. Rachel had convinced me to try a clean-shaven look once, jokingly saying she wanted to see my face. I laughed at that suggestion, hoping she wouldn't be put off by the man behind the mask. Thankfully, she wasn't. And here I was, on cloud 9. Feeling like a weight had been lifted, I made my way to Rachel's house, feeling on top of the world. Walking through the door, I was met by a nervous and pale-looking Rachel. The look of worry gave me a sense of déjà vu. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked nervously, feeling the familiar dread. "We need to talk," she said suddenly, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Those familiar feelings and nausea attacked my senses. "Okay," I said as Rachel took my hand and sat me down. "Look, Rachel, if you're going to break up with me, just do it quickly so I can get out of here," I said abruptly, and she recoiled in shock. "No, honey," she replied, gripping my hand tighter and pulling me closer. "I don't know how to say this because I don't want you to get mad at me. My feelings of dread are not abetted. I am pregnant," she announced hesitantly. I was in shock. We remained silent for a few seconds as her beautiful face creased up. Trying to gauge my reaction, I rose to my feet and walked a few steps away, turning back to her, looking worried and on the verge of tears. I screamed at the top of my lungs while simultaneously jumping in the air with both fists raised. Her face lit up, joy springing back into her eyes. "You're not mad?" she asked, regaining her beautiful smile. "How could I be mad? I'm going to be a daddy," I announced before taking her into my arms and kissing her passionately on the lips. We embraced each other for the next 5 minutes. I was the happiest man on earth. Over the next few days, Rachel, Lisa, and I started looking for a house. Despite Rachel having little in savings, I had nearly $160,000 in the bank, more than enough to buy a house outright. In less than a week, we found a beautiful 5-bed colonial in Pine Hills. It needed some renovation work, which put off other buyers, but with my construction experience, I was excited about its potential. Our offer was accepted, and we didn't need to take out a mortgage. The day we moved in, I got down on one knee and proposed to Rachel. It was fast, but I loved her so much, and she was the one for me. She accepted. I'd love to say that from there we lived happily ever after. But that would skip over the reason I'm sad here in this courthouse. Just to make it clear, I was not being charged with anything. Well, a couple of weeks after moving into our new home, I had a phone call from Danny. It was earth-shattering, to say the least. I had actually forgotten all about Danny asking Kathy's colleague to look into my ex-wife's new husband. And to be honest, Danny did too. If this had been going on for months, I had no idea what it was going to cost me. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't even care to know what he had found out. Nonetheless, Danny was beside himself with glee and just had to tell me his findings. I remained silent as Danny began to speak. "The whole thing is a house of cards, Mike," he said, laughing. "Kathy's guy dug around, and after you gave us the full name, it set the wheels in motion. It turns out the IRS and the feds got involved." "Hold on," I yelled, thinking I had missed a major chunk of the story. "What do you mean the feds are involved?" "Just listen, Mike. Just you listen to this," he said, trying to calm me down. "The gardening company he owns has Lauren listed as a director, and it is in serious debt, Mike. I mean serious debt. And that is just for starters. The house he owns now has Lauren's name on the deeds, and it is worth over $1 million. But the mortgage payments are made through a company called Zenith Enterprises. That company owns the house and the business. Lauren and Richard are listed as joint co-owners, and it began trading only 6 months ago, probably just after their wedding. I was trying my best to keep up, and I knew Danny was doing his best to relay what Kathy had obviously told him. Kathy's guy alerted the IRS, who, by the way, will be picking up his tab. I was pleased to hear I wasn't going to be stuck with a huge bill. Anyway, the IRS investigated Richard Stone and found out he is on their wanted list. They had a picture of him or something. "So he's a fraudster," I said, stating the obvious. "Oh, you're right, Mike. But wait until you hear what happened next," he said, teasing me. "Well, this investigation alerted the attention of some big corporate type in Raleigh, North Carolina," I interjected. "Yep," Danny said excitedly. "Well, his name is David Sloan, and he has a daughter called Jennifer Reed. She is currently estranged from her husband, Mark Reed. They have 2 kids together, and okay, by now I was seriously confused." "Get on with it, Danny," I said, exasperated. "Stick with me, Mike," he said breathlessly. "It turns out Mark Reed is Richard Stone." "What?" I screamed down the phone, and Danny's ear must have been ringing. Not that he would have cared. He was too busy laughing his ass off. "Yeah, and they are still legally married. I think he is called a bigamist or something. But that is not the best of it," he said, leaving me hanging for more. This was beginning to sound like a Hollywood movie or something. Well, the FBI got involved, and it turns out the guy is a 2-time felon. He has spent time inside for drugs and burglary. I think Mr. Sloan managed to get him a reduced sentence for the second conviction. He is a powerful man, apparently. Anyways, the feds investigated him, and this Mark Richard guy made contact with another suspect they were looking into regarding drug trafficking crimes. My mind drifted back towards Lauren and her friends and family. I could just picture their faces at this size. I started to smile. "There is more, Mike," Danny continued. "The FBI and the IRS joined forces and took this guy down. They found him at a storage unit not far from his home. And the answer to how a man in debt could afford $1 million house and a lavish lifestyle became all too clear." "How, Danny, how?" I was hooked. "They found heroin, ecstasy, and stolen goods in his unit and his truck. They actually think he was about to flee again. He had suitcases filled with clothes and stuff in his truck." I started to laugh, and Rachel joined me on the sofa, shaking her head and laughing too. She had no idea what she was laughing at or what was making me so happy. "So what about Lauren?" I asked, and Rachel swung around and glared at me. I put my hand over the receiver and whispered to her. "You are not going to believe this," I said, shaking my head and leaving her hanging. Danny continued to speak as I returned the receiver to my ear. "She was arrested. Her parents have somehow managed to keep it out of the media, but I expect over the next few days they will be front-page news." "It is a big news story after all," he said. "I actually think Danny was more excited than I was, because, quite honestly, any feelings I had for Lauren, ill or otherwise, were gone." I reached for Rachel's hand and held it just to confirm that fact. After I ended the call, I turned to Rachel with eager anticipation and told her everything. She was shocked and surprised because even though she knew Lauren was a complete bitch, it never dawned on her that she could be a criminal. All I could think of was what her parents, family, and the so-called social elites thought of her. Poor old Daddy had a duped criminal for a daughter, and that cannot go down too well at the country club. I had to laugh to myself, and Rachel knew what I was thinking and laughed along with me. A few days later, the front page of every newspaper in the area and every media news channel was covering the story. I guess Lauren's parents still had some leverage in the community because she barely got a mention. Of course, the bigamous drug-trafficking con man was splashed all over our screens, but the female accomplice, who moved in elite social circles and was well known in the corporate financial world, was not named. However, less than a week passed before one newspaper published the mugshot picture of them both, complete with prisoner numbers, but no mention of Lauren by name. We did find out that Mark Reed was actually 42 and not 36, as he claimed to be. So my ex-wife actually left me for an older criminal who has just destroyed her life. Maybe she wasn't as intelligent as she thought. I was actually shocked at the image of my ex-wife. I had to take a few looks just to recognize her. She looked a shadow of the confident and arrogant woman who dumped me nearly 8 months ago. She was gaunt and looked as though she had aged. Her hair was thinner and she had huge dark bags under her eyes. I looked up to see my beautiful pregnant fiancée, CE, who looked the complete opposite. I felt like the luckiest man alive, not only to have her, but to also be shot of my ex and her family. In the months that followed, the whole issue died down. We enjoyed our first family Christmas in the new house. Rachel's parents came to stay with us. Kathy and Danny stopped by, and I was surprised to see a few of my old friends from my construction days get back in touch. I loved Rachel too, and it was they who talked me into getting back into the construction game. Rachel and Lisa agreed with them, and that's another reason I love them. In the new year, I quit my job and became a self-employed tradesman. I was working on construction sites, but also doing small jobs in the community. Ironically, I also started to get a lot of requests to do gardening work in quite a few neighborhoods. I was even surprised to be contacted by Greg and Susan, but only if I promised not to try anything on with Susan. They had my word. In March, Rachel gave birth to our twins, Alex and Sophia. In April, we were married in a small ceremony in Maplewood. It had been just over a year since the divorce from Lauren, and to think how much has happened in that time is astonishing. However, sadly, it would not be the last I would see of her. My new perfect life had been going so well until a visitor came knocking on my door completely out of the blue. His name was Andrew Lane of the law firm Parker, and Lane, who was defending Miss Lauren Baker in her upcoming court case. I was surprised she had gone back to her maiden name. Surely Mommy and Daddy wouldn't like the good Baker name dragged through the proverbial mud. Mr. Lane made himself comfortable in my house as he spoke. "We would like you to provide a good character testimony for Lauren." "I mean Miss Baker?" he asked forthrightly. I laughed. "Why would I do that?" I replied. "Well, before your divorce, you knew Miss Baker better than anyone. You know she is straight and would never get involved in anything criminal, right?" I don't know if he was asking or telling me, but even I could see where he was going with this. "What if he refuses?" a voice behind me suddenly asked. Rachel emerged from down the stairs, obviously listening in on our conversation. Mr. Lane looked at me. "What did my wife say?" I proffered. "Well, we can get a subpoena and force you to attend. If you still fail to show up, we can have you charged and thrown in jail," he said with a now menacing tone. My first reaction was to smash him in the face and throw him head first through the door. But as I looked towards my wife, I realized I had too much to lose. I had no idea if what he said was right or even legal, but for one court appearance I acquiesced to his demands. So here I am, sat in the waiting room of the courthouse. The trial has been going on for a couple of days, and as my appearance neared, I turned to Rachel. "What do I say, honey?" I asked with a whisper. She took my hand and looked at me with those beautiful brown eyes and said, "You are the most honest and loving man I have ever known. Just be honest." I knew that what I said in that court would probably have no bearing on the case at all. I had been strong-armed into attending by my ex-wife's legal team. They had wrongly made the assumption that I would speak highly of her. It could be the biggest mistake they had ever made because I was going to do no such thing. A few days ago, the trial for Mark Reed had concluded. He was found guilty of Class C bigamy, a federal charge of Schedule I drug possession with intent to supply perjury, handling stolen property, and a whole range of charges relating to defrauding the U.S. government. He was also on a third strike. He was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Even I was shocked by that sentence. However, in an attempt to get a lesser sentence, he implicated Lauren on the fraud and handling stolen goods charges. He claimed she was in on it as they started the holding company as soon as they were married. What is it they say about no honor among thieves? The stolen property charges were being contested, but on fraud, the IRS had her all ends up. "Mr. Parker, we are ready for you," the bailiff declared. I rose to my feet and exhaled loudly. Rachel had left to join the public gallery while Lisa looked after the twins in the waiting room. They were sound asleep, oblivious to it all. In the court, my name was announced, and as I approached the stand, I could feel the eyes of the entire court on me. It was a strange atmosphere. There were a few gasps as I took the stand, especially from those sat behind the defendant. As I took the oath, I turned to face the room, and it was the first time in over a year that I had seen Lauren in the flesh. She was dressed in an orange prison uniform and surrounded on either side by an expensively put-together defense team. She was looking down at her feet, but I made eye contact with her parents and then a few of her friends who sat behind her. I made out a couple of people who looked at me and mouthed the word, "Wow." The irony of me now looking down on them from the witness stand was not lost on me. I spent our entire marriage with them all looking down on me. Now the roles have been reversed. Andrew Lane rose to his feet and began to speak. "Thank you for coming today, Mr. Parker," he said. "Well, I wasn't given much choice, was I, Mr. Lane?" I replied, staring down at him. He recoiled at my tone, and all eyes turned towards him to see what his reply would be. At that moment, Lauren finally lifted her head and looked in my direction. Her eyes flew wide open and her jaw dropped. She suddenly burst into tears, causing everyone to turn and look. The realization must have hit her. The man she fell in love with had made a welcome return, and the man she had destroyed was gone. She was now inconsolable. As the judge asked her lawyer if he needed to take a minute, he ignored his offer and continued. "Mr. Parker, as the defendant's ex-husband, who was admittedly treated very well by my client in the divorce, would you agree that the charges against her surprise even you?" he asked. No objections from the prosecutor. I was very shocked, but being treated well in the divorce, I guess you and I have different ideas on that, I replied confidently as murmurs appeared from behind him. I am sure I could see Lauren's parents talking to one of the team as Lauren continued sobbing. "Okay, Mr. Parker, but would you say that in all the time you and the defendant were together, she was always an honest, hard-working, and law-abiding citizen?" he asked. "Well, she was cheating on me for 4 months with a man she described as younger, more attractive, and successful. So once again, we probably have our own definitions of honesty," I replied. I was beginning to think at that point her legal team realized they may have made an error here. Remember, he only threatened me to turn up, not paint a picture of a perfect, innocent woman. I was just being honest, like Rachel said I should be. But would you agree that in that time you neglected yourself physically and intellectually? So when someone better came along, could you really blame the defendant for moving on? He said. Truly, there was an almost universal chorus of disapproving moans from the public gallery and the prosecution bench, who obviously felt that at this point they were not really needed. The defense was digging my ex-wife's grave. The judge brought about order, giving me a chance to think about my reply. I agree that I neglected aspects of my life. It was very hard to live with someone who controlled my life and whose family and friends considered you beneath them. The defendant's father once referred to me as a good-looking dummy, I said openly, and the look of shock and confusion amongst the defense was almost too hilarious for words. At this point, Lauren was just staring at me with pity in her eyes. I had none for her in return. That may well be, Mr. Parker, but there is nothing to suggest that the defendant was ever involved in criminal activity. No evidence to suggest that for the years you were together she was dishonest or looking to commit fraud. She paid her bills, even yours for a while, and never broke the law. Is that right? He said, now visibly flustered. Objection. The prosecutor rose to her feet. This is inadmissible, Your Honor. The witness is not here to prove the defendant committed no crime. It is a waste of the court's time. Sustained, the judge said. The defense can rephrase the question. Mr. Lane looked perplexed but cleared his throat and resumed his line of questioning. Mr. Parker, in the years you were together, the defendant was an honest person who paid all her bills, her taxes, and her mortgage. She even paid yours for a time, is that correct? He stated. Yes, I said, but I have no idea what type of person she has been over the last year. Well, I think we can take a guess, I said. Objection, Mr. Lane, he said, looking at the judge. What do you mean, objection, Mr. Lane? Here's your character witness, the judge said, trying not to laugh. As half the courtroom burst into laughter, the jury had to look away. Your Honor, he is obviously a bitter ex-husband seeking revenge on the woman who dumped him and moved on, he said, now getting angry and irate. The defense team was now beside themselves with worry. Lauren was looking back between her parents and her counsel with tears running down her face. The judge spoke again. If he is a bitter ex-husband, then why did you put him on the stand? The prosecution team just sat back and smiled to one another. Is it true that you are indeed a bitter man who just wants to see his ex-wife suffer? Mr. Lane asked after a period of silence. If this had happened 11 months ago, you may have had a point, but now I have nothing to be bitter about. I may not be an intelligent man, Your Honor, but I am an honest man. Please, Mr. Parker, your wife, ex-wife, Mr. Lane, I interjected. Okay, your ex-wife leaves you for another man and you feel no bitterness or ill will towards her and her family? He probed. No, like I said, 11 months ago. Maybe you could have implied that. But since then, I have found the most beautiful woman in the world, I said, looking over into the public gallery and straight at Rachel. People followed my gaze until all eyes were on her. She picked me up, put me back together, and now I get to call her my wife. She has given me 3 beautiful children. We have great friends, a wonderful family, a beautiful home, and a successful business. Who in the world would be bitter with all that? I stated, never breaking eye contact with my beautiful wife, the smile never leaving my lips. She just looked back at me with that radiant smile. Nodding her head, I turned back to see the defense looking tense. And now Lauren's parents were looking down at their hands. Lauren looked distraught and was sobbing as she caught my eye. I mouthed the words thank you to her and she collapsed into her arms onto the table. I was dismissed, and I returned to my family. As I walked through the door, I could hear a big commotion with Lauren at the center of it. She was screaming, "Sorry, I love you," but whether or not it was aimed at me, I do not know, and frankly, I did not care. Lauren was found guilty of conspiracy to commit an offense to defraud the U.S. government. I guess the court felt Mark Reed was not smart enough to do it alone. I read it was titles 18 to 371, 26 to 72, 1 and 72, 6, 1 and 2. I had no idea what that meant. She was also found guilty of 5th-degree possession of stolen goods, which was a Class A misdemeanor. Apparently, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison. It also meant any chance of continuing her career in finance upon her eventual release was gone forever. First life is pretty great. The twins are getting bigger each day, and their smiles can lift the clouds on even the darkest day, which I am pleased to say are few and far between. My business is booming, and even Rachel now has a few clients that visit our home for hair and beauty treatments. Lisa is breezing through her final year of college, which I am now paying for, by the way. Well, it is the least I could do for her. She did save my life. Lisa is breezing through her final year of college, which I am now paying for, by the way. Well, it is the least I could do for her. She did save my life. One day, as I was finishing up a job at a client's house, I got a call from Danny. "Hey, Mike, can you talk?" he asked, sounding a bit urgent. "Sure, what's up?" I replied, wiping the sweat off my forehead. "Remember that investigator Kathy knows? The one who looked into Lauren's new husband? Well, he's found something else," Danny said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What now?" I asked, a bit weary. "I thought we were done with all that." "I know, man, but you gotta hear this. Turns out, Richard, Mark had more skeletons in his closet than we knew. There's a whole mess of financial scams and frauds he was involved in, and Lauren might have been deeper in it than we thought," Danny explained. I sighed, feeling the weight of the information. "What does this mean for us?" "Probably nothing, man, but it's something you should know, especially with the kids and Rachel. Just keep your guard up," Danny advised. "Got it. Thanks, Danny," I said before hanging up. I shook my head, thinking about the craziness that had been my life for the past couple of years. When I got home, Rachel was in the kitchen prepping dinner. "Hey, honey, you won't believe the latest from Danny," I said, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. "What now?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. More dirt on Mark. "Seems he and Lauren were involved in even more scams than we knew. Danny's guy found some new evidence," I explained. Rachel frowned, her hands pausing over the salad she was making. "Do you think it's going to affect us?" "Nah, I don't think so. But it's a reminder to stay vigilant," I replied, wrapping my arms around her waist. "We're a team, and we can handle anything." Rachel smiled, leaning into me. "We've been through worse, Mike. We'll get through this too." Later that night, after putting the twins to bed, Rachel and I sat on the porch, enjoying the cool evening air. "I was thinking," she said, breaking the comfortable silence, "maybe we should take a vacation, just the two of us. Leave the kids with my parents for a week." "A vacation, huh?" I said, smiling at the thought. "Where would we go? I don't know. Maybe somewhere sunny and relaxing." "Just to get away from all this," Rachel suggested, looking hopeful. "That sounds like a great idea." "We deserve a break," I agreed, squeezing her hand. "Let's do it." As we planned our getaway, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the turn my life had taken. From the depths of despair, I had found love and happiness again. And though the past still cast its shadow, I knew that with Rachel by my side, I could face anything. The next few months flew by. The twins celebrated their first birthday, surrounded by friends and family. Lisa graduated from college with honors, and we couldn't have been prouder. My business continued to thrive, and Rachel's little home salon was gaining popularity. Finally, the day of our vacation arrived. We left the kids with Rachel's parents and headed to a beach resort in Florida. It was everything we needed: a break from reality, a chance to reconnect and remember why we fell in love. As we walked along the beach one evening, hand in hand, Rachel turned to me and said, "Mike, I want you to know something. No matter what happens, no matter what the future holds, I'm with you, always." I stopped, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I love you, Rachel. You saved me. You gave me a reason to live again, and you've made me the happiest woman in the world," she replied, tears glistening in her eyes. Under the setting sun, we kissed, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We were a team, bound by love and strengthened by the trials we had overcome. And as the waves gently lapped at our feet, I knew that I had finally found my forever home, right there in Rachel's arms. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed Mike's journey from heartbreak to finding love again, make sure to like and subscribe for more incredible stories. What would you have done in Mike's situation? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, take care. There I sat in front of the television, pretending to be interested in the football game. It was Sunday afternoon. Anna and I had just finished eating the roast chicken meal that she had prepared. While she was busy putting the dishes away, I was looking at the game, but much of the time when she wasn't looking my way, I was observing her. Anna is an attractive woman, not exceedingly pretty, but very pleasant to look at. Her most important asset is her voluptuous body. Being tall with shoulder-length blonde hair, She has a special way to look at you with her large blue eyes that can send shivers through your spine. At least she does have that effect on me. We have now been married for 8 years, and we have 2 beautiful daughters, Lily, age 6, and Zoe, age 5. Since we both have full-time jobs, my mother takes care of our daughters while we are working. Anna or I pick them up from my mom's place after work each day. After the birth of Zoe, I got a vasectomy. We both agreed that having 2 children was enough for us, but what was preoccupying me at the moment was certainly not our 2 daughters who were now quietly playing together in their room. No, I was thinking about the many changes that I had noticed in Anna in the last few months. These changes, like the way she now dressed and her longer hours at work, were nothing much taken separately. But looking at the whole of the many changes that she had undergone, it was worrying me, especially her attitude at home. It seemed to me that something was now preoccupying her. On many occasions while we were watching TV, I would make comments about the movie or the program that we were watching. Judging by her answers, I could tell that she wasn't paying attention to what she had seemed to be watching. Her eyes were on the TV, and she seemed to be paying attention to what was going on the screen, but it was evident that her mind was somewhere else. Then in bed at night, even if our sex life was still good, 2 or 3 times a week, she would keep on tossing around for hours before finally falling asleep after making love with me. I knew that there was something bothering her, but the problem was that she was not sharing her problem with me. I didn't think it would be a good idea to approach her and ask her directly what was worrying her, since I knew that it would probably contribute even more to her distant mood. I hoped that whenever she felt ready to discuss what was bothering her, she would. We had always shared everything before, and we were always open to talk things together. So why was she so secretive about it now? Anna was an exceedingly good cook, and she was always eager to try to cook different dishes for me. She would spend hours on the internet trying to look for new ways to prepare food and new recipes. She even went on chat sites where she talked with other women and exchanged ideas about new dishes and how to prepare them. I even knew her chat name, having seen it often on my way to the washroom as I would walk behind her while she was on the computer. She was using the name Annabelle. I figured that she had chosen that name since her mother always called her that way. She would chat almost every evening with those women that were in this special food preparation room, and I knew that it was not only food that they were talking about. As I sat there watching her cleaning the table, I suddenly had an idea. What was preventing me from using my laptop while she was chatting and getting into that special food preparation room under a fictitious name and see what they were all talking about? I told myself that I could even talk to her in there without her realizing that she was talking to me. But later, after thinking more about it, I realized that it was a cheap shot and I didn't have the heart to do it, especially with the possibility of her finding out that I was spying on her. A week later, things were not better. Anna was still lost in her thoughts, and even when one of our daughters was trying to get her attention, she would barely notice them when she was at home. I knew then that I had to do something. That is when I decided to spy on her and even talk to her while she was in her chat room with those women. The next day, while I was in my office at work, I registered myself in the same messenger site that she was using under the name of New Mom. I chose that name since it would leave no doubt to the fact that I was a female, so as to make all those women in the room feel safe having me there. Anna would usually log into her chat room at around 9:00 p.m. once our 2 daughters were in bed, and on that Monday evening I was ready for her. The instant that I saw her entering the small room in front of the washroom where her computer was, I got up and told her that I was going to the basement in my office so as to catch up on some paperwork. She just nodded to me, and I immediately went down where my home office was. A few minutes later, I was in the special food preparation room waiting for her name to appear. There were 5 other women there, and they were having a discussion on how to prepare the perfect cheesecake. After 5 minutes, I was still waiting for my wife's name to appear on the list at the bottom of the screen. After another minute, one of the women wrote to me asking if I knew of a special recipe for a cheesecake. Of course, I knew nothing about cakes, and I got out of this bad situation by just writing down that I had never baked one yet, and that it was the reason that I was in the room. I wanted to learn from experienced cooks. As soon as I was finishing writing, I saw the name Annabelle appearing at the top of the list of people in the room. Soon, everyone was giving me tips on cooking cheesecakes. Even Annabelle was telling me what kind of cheese to use and how much of it. After a while, we were about a dozen people trying to talk, and it was difficult to follow, so I asked Annabelle if she could write her cheesecake recipe and send it to me. Of course, I gave her a Hotmail address that I had created for this special purpose. The following day, while I was at work, I checked my mail. There was an email to New Mom from Annabelle. It was the cheesecake recipe from Annabelle. I was thrilled since I now had her email address. It was an address that was completely unknown to me. I was shocked since my wife had never before hidden anything from me. I felt a little bad for the rest of the day for what I had done, and I knew that she must never discover that New Mom was actually her husband. The following day, I sent her an email to tell her that I had tried her recipe and the cake had turned out great, and that my husband loved it. Soon we were sending emails to one another, and a week later we began to chat outside of the special food preparation room. We both had written each other's names as friends on the chat site, and now we could talk any time we wanted without having to go into the food section of the messenger site. Anna's mood around the house and around me continued to deteriorate during the following 2 weeks. Our sex life was going down the drain. We were making love only once a week now, and when we were doing it, I could tell that my wife was not enjoying it as she used to. It was as if I was a wooden log. She just remained there mostly in the missionary position and let me use her body until I was done. We did continue to write and chat, and I now felt a lot less guilty doing this. I figured that I had to find out what was going on so as to try and save my marriage. Yes, in my mind, my marriage was going in the wrong direction with her being so distant all the time with me and the children. Even sex with her was getting worse still and less frequent as time went on. I could tell that her interest in me and in our 2 daughters came in second to something else that was hidden in her mind. Of course, she was still a devoted mother, and I know that she would probably give her life for us still. But something terrible was eating at her, and I had to find out what it was. Yes, there was something going on, and I could feel it. I began to suspect that she was having an affair. I was now ready to do anything to learn more about what was happening to her. I didn't have money to hire a private investigator so as to follow her around, as I have often read in stories, and there was no way for me to check on her at her place of work. For one thing, I knew very little about her co-workers and what was going on where she worked. We both had the same work schedule. She is one of the many secretaries for a big law firm and me as a programmer for a large bank. So one evening while we were chatting, I made up my mind to break the ice and to get more personal with her. We were feeling comfortable with each other by then, and it was time for me to start pumping information out of her. I told her that my real name was Laura, and that I was living in Florida. She immediately said that her name was Anna and she was living in Ohio. Laura: "What kind of work do you do, Anna?" Anna: "I am a legal secretary, and I prepare contracts and other legal documents for lawyers that work for our firm." "What about you, Laura?" I was not prepared to answer that question, and I had to think fast. Laura: "Well, at the moment I am not working since I am still on my maternity leave. But in 2 weeks' time, I will start working again. I work in a bank. I'm a teller." Anna: "Oh, my husband also works for a bank. His name is Tom, and he's a programmer there. What's the name of your husband?" This was going even better than I had hoped for. My wife was telling me information which I knew to be true, and in the back of my mind, I was looking forward to asking her many more personal questions. Laura: "His name is Kevin, and he sells insurance." After that, we did talk about cooking and other matters. I didn't want to push things too much, so I decided to wait till our next chat session to try to get her to talk more about her personal life and her job. We didn't get to chat for the following 2 evenings, and on the 3rd day I did send her an email telling her that the manager of the bank where I was working had phoned me. They had an emergency, and he had asked me if I could start working a week before my leave was due to end. They were going to pay me the extra week in cash. I wrote that I was very excited, and at the same time I was afraid to go back to work. I had thought it over the previous day, and I had made up my mind to pretend to Anna that I had had an affair with a man working with me at the bank. I had planned this story so that my wife would feel more at ease confiding to her new friend. And what better way to do that than to let her in on a fictitious secret affair that I was having? I knew that if she was cheating on me, she would be more tempted to talk about it then. Anna, you mentioned in your email that it frightened you to go back to work. Why is that so? Laura, I don't know if I should tell you this, but since you are my best friend, I will. I do hope that you won't think any less of me after you know what I have done. Anna, we all make mistakes. After all, we are humans. What have you done? Have you taken money from the bank? Laura, oh no, it is nothing like that. It's just that I met a man where I work. His name is Roberto. We gradually became very good friends and much more, if you know what I mean. I then went on to tell her that I had been having an affair with this man and it had gone on for over a year. I went on to explain to her how it all began between him and me, and that during that year we had been meeting once a week, usually on Friday after work. I told her that sex with him was fun and exciting, but I still loved my husband and didn't want him to find out and thus destroy our marriage. It was plain to see that my telling Anna this story was disturbing her, since she would let me write on, never asking me a question for a long time. I could imagine her at that moment sitting there in the small room on the main floor of the house in front of her computer, and probably thinking about the similarity of what was happening to her if she was cheating on me, of course. At last, she did ask Laura a question, and I watched it slowly appearing on my screen. Anna, but you just had a baby. Are you sure that your husband is the father? Laura, no, I don't really know who the father is, and this is why he must never find out about my affair. I then pretended to go into a fit of crying, and I wrote down that I had to go since I was no longer able to write. When I went in the kitchen half an hour later, Anna was sitting in front of the television, but I could tell that she was in her usual thinking mode and not paying attention to what was going on the tube. I sat next to her on the couch, and when I reached for her hand, she looked at me. I could tell that she had been crying since her eyes were very red. We talked for a few minutes. Then she asked me if I was ready to go to bed. I knew that she was really asking me to come and have sex with her. I certainly was ready for it, since it had been over a week now that we hadn't made love. Once in bed, we had sex and kissed for over an hour before finally falling asleep in each other's arms, thinking about all of what was happening to our marriage. The next day at work, I was still undecided about what I was going to do. So far, I couldn't say if this fictitious friendship that I had created with my wife in the chat room was a good thing or not, but it certainly had contributed a lot to my having sex with her the previous evening. Up to now, I hadn't learned anything from her. I knew that first, I had to create a climate so that Laura and her would share information. If my wife was having an affair, she would be a lot more comfortable confiding to her friend Laura now that she knew her secret. Anna and Laura didn't chat during the weekend, but on Monday, I sent Anna an email at work, telling her that I had had a long talk with Roberto for the first time in 3 months. I was so happy about it that I had to write and tell her about it. That evening at home, as soon as the children were in bed, I went to the basement in my office and I got on my computer and waited for Anna to log in so that we could chat. Laura, I am so glad to chat with you this evening. I have good news to tell you. Anna, I did get your email, and I do believe that I know why you seem in such a good mood, LOL, Laura. Well, Roberto was as thrilled as I was to finally be able to talk to me, and I could tell that he still wants me. I am so happy. Anna, but how come he didn't phone you or try to see you in the last 3 months if he still cares for you? Laura, well, as for phoning me, it was out of the question since I think that Kevin had doubts about me, and I am pretty sure that somehow he has a gadget to listen on the house phone. As for my cellular, well, he can easily see what numbers I call when he pays the bill. Anna. But why did you not get to meet him in a motel as you used to do when you were working? Laura. No, this wouldn't have worked. I was pregnant and fat for the last few months, and, well, I don't think that Roberto would have enjoyed making love to a pregnant woman. They talked on and on for another half hour, and I could tell that my wife didn't seem to like this Roberto macho man that I had made up. I was trying to show to my wife the ugliness and selfishness of cheating by making Roberto appear as a self-centered macho idiot, like most male cheaters are. Anna and Laura didn't get to talk on Tuesday, but on Wednesday they did, and my wife began to talk about what had been bothering her for the last 2 months. They talked for over an hour, and I learned that she was indeed having an affair with a lawyer who was also her boss. She said that his name was David Walton, and he was married with 1 child. I had heard Anna talk about him a few times, but in the last 3 or 4 months, she had never mentioned his name once. Their affair had begun almost a year ago when they went to Denver together to attend a convention. I still could well remember that Wednesday when Anna left for the convention. She had never mentioned to me that her boss would be going with her. She had explained to me that she and another secretary were going there together, leaving me under the impression that it was only the 2 of them that were going. At the time, she had brought the argument to me that it would look good on her appraisal if she was to attend the convention, and it would also help her get a raise. My wife told Laura that the first evening after the group had dinner together, they went to the hotel lounge, and she and her boss had a few glasses of wine until it was late evening. Then he invited her to his room for a nightcap. They had more wine, and soon one thing led to another, and they were kissing, and he was touching her in places that made her very excited. This led to their undressing each other, and before she knew it, they were having sex together. Later, when it was over, she felt very bad about having cheated on her husband, and she ran crying to her room to spend the rest of the night there. The second night, for some reason that she still couldn't explain to herself, it was a rerun of the first evening. But this time she spent the whole night with him in his bed. I was flabbergasted when I read what my wife wrote. How could she do this to me and to her daughters? Not only had she had sex with this son of a witch once, she had done it on 2 separate occasions. She had even spent the whole night in his bed the second time. Now that the ice was broken, I wanted to learn more, so I went on asking her questions about what was now going on between her boss and her, and she willingly answered all my questions. It resumed to the following: after she got back from the convention, she felt terrible, and she didn't have sex with him for a couple of weeks. But gradually, her resistance to his constant advances evaporated, and they began to have sex again. At first, they did it in his office after working hours, but after a month, he began to bring her to a room at the Marriott where they would spend a whole afternoon. Even now, they were still going to the Marriott once a week, and he was also screwing her in his office a couple of times a week after work. The anger that I felt as I read her story is impossible to describe. It took all of my self-control not to climb the stairs and strangle her at that very moment, but gradually much of my anger was replaced with a need for revenge. I knew that my marriage was over, and all I wanted to do now was to make her suffer for what she had done to our marriage. Then I asked her as Laura if she loved this David Walton. Her answer was fast and clear. No, she didn't love him since she loved her husband more than life itself, but the sex with David was fantastic. She said, using her own words, "It's like a drug to me. The more sex that I am having with David, the more I want." Her affair with her boss had begun over a year ago, and since then, she had been doing him 3 or 4 times per week. He was having sex with my wife much more often than I was. I could remember all those times that I had been longing and dreaming to have sex with her, but she always had an excuse so that she wouldn't let me have sex with her. But judging by what she wrote to Laura, she was always ready and eager to screw him. She was giving to another man what rightfully belonged to me. I was paying the price so that he could enjoy her body as much as he wanted. No wonder I had noticed a change in her attitude for some time now. But come to think of it, I told myself, by now she must be planning to leave me to be with David. But I knew that he was a married man with a child. Was he in love with my wife? Did he find her a better partner? Or was it the excitement of cheating on his wife and making me a cuck that was driving him? Laura and Anna had been chatting for well over an hour now, and I felt emotionally empty. There were so many questions unanswered still, but the answers had to wait. I had to think about what I had just learned, so I pretended that the baby needed me, and with a promise of chatting again in a day or two, she said goodbye. What is a man to do when he discovers that his world is collapsing around him, when he learns that his wife is no longer exclusive to him and is being screwed regularly by another man? When she is being screwed by this cheating man even more often than she is by her lawful husband? How should a man react when he learns from the mouth of his wife that sex with another man is like a drug to her and she no longer can do without it? Oh yes, I know that she did say that she loved me more than life itself, but I certainly couldn't forget the fact that she was regularly giving her body and soul to this stranger. How could she love our daughters and me, and at the same time betray us? She was living in a world of passion while I was in my world of anguish, pain, and neglect. I knew that I had to make her pay for what she was doing to us. I definitely knew of a way to punish her terribly, and that was to keep her away from our daughters. I had to divorce her and somehow retain full custody of our 2 daughters. This would be the worst thing that could happen to her. I could then move far away to another state so that she wouldn't be able to see them often. That would be hell for her. I intended also to let David's wife know about his affair with my wife. Then I could sue the firm where they were both working for breaking my marriage. Yes, I intended to do all of these things, but first I had to find a way to prove that she was cheating on me with David. It was extremely difficult for me to act normally around her after that, but since her mind was preoccupied with her affair and not being caught, she didn't notice my sad state of mind. So, for Anna, life went on pretty much as it had gone for the last year. It was Friday evening, and it had been 2 days now that she and Laura hadn't chatted. That morning, as Laura, I had sent her an email to ask her if she could be online that evening. She had written back that she would chat at their usual time. I had already prepared a series of questions that I wanted to ask her, and even though I knew that her answers would only cause me more pain, I needed to know how much she cared for David and what were her plans for the future. I was in front of my computer in the basement, even before the children were asleep, and as soon as she had logged on, I greeted her. Laura, I am glad to finally talk to you. For the last 2 days I kept thinking about what you said last time. Anna, I hope that what I said last time didn't shock you too much and that you don't think that I am a bad person. Laura, how could I judge you? I have done much worse than you did. After all, we are both only humans. Anna. It made me feel much better to be able to talk about all of this with you. There is no one here that can understand what I am going through. I used to talk about all of my problems with my husband, but I can't certainly discuss this one with him, LOL. Laura. Do you think that your husband knows something about what is going on? Anna. No, I'm sure that he suspects nothing. He's very trusting. If he did, he certainly would go into a fit. He can be very mean, and I certainly wouldn't like to provoke him. Laura. You did mention the other day that your husband had had a vasectomy after the birth of your last child. Are you not afraid that David might impregnate you? Anna. No, I am not worried about that since I have been on the pill for over a year now since David and I began to... Laura. Your husband must never find out that you are taking pills. You must be hiding them somewhere safe, I suppose. Anna. Yes, they are hidden in a safe place. I still have a 3-month supply hidden in a shoebox in my bedroom. Each morning when he's in the shower, I take my daily pill. I could tell that my wife was having fun telling her friend how easy it was to fool me. Not only was she cucking me, but also she was deriving pleasure by making a fool out of me. But now I was preparing myself to ask her the big question. Laura, do you intend to leave your husband for David? Anna, this will never happen. I really love my husband, and I certainly don't love David. Sex with David is great and wonderful, but we don't make love, if you see what I mean. This is why I am so on edge. I do want the sex with David to continue, but at the same time, I certainly don't want my husband to find out what I am doing. Laura. Wow, you want your cake, and you want to eat it too. Your husband is bound to find out, don't you think? Anna. No, he won't. David and we are very careful. Remember, David is married also, and he would get in deep trouble if his wife should find out about us. Laura, is David a better lover than your husband is? Is he bigger than your husband is? Anna. No, my husband is a wonderful lover, but David is, well, different. I suppose it is the excitement and the danger of being caught that makes it so good. As for David, well, he is a little bigger, but I don't think that it makes much difference. Like I said, Jake and we make love while with David. I have sex with him. Do you see the difference, huh? I was shocked to discover how frivolously my wife was talking about her cheating. It was as if it was a game for her. I had to know if she realized the misery and hurt that she was causing my daughters and me when her mind was more often than not preoccupied with thoughts of her lover and not being caught. At the risk of damaging her friendship with Laura, I asked her the following. Laura, but are you not neglecting your husband? Surely he must be getting a lot less attention from you because of your affair. She didn't write back immediately, and there was a long pause before she wrote her answer. Could it be, I told myself, that my wife had never thought about the effect of her cheating on me? Anna, well, we do make love still. It is not as often as we used to, but I don't believe that it really mattered to him. He does love me a lot. After all, I can't let him have sex with me when I am still leaking from David. If I did, he would certainly find out what is going on. Laura, but are you not afraid that he will start looking somewhere else for the attention that he's not getting at home? Anna, I have never thought about it that way, but now that you mention it, do you think it could happen? You just gave me something to worry about now, Laura. Laura. Well, it wasn't my intention to scare you, but still, you should think about it. We went on to talk about other matters for a while. Then before leaving, my wife told Laura that in a few weeks she and David were going to Denver again for 3 days, and she was all excited about it. I was shocked because she hadn't even talked to me about this trip yet. When we went to bed that evening, we both had difficulties falling asleep. I didn't try to initiate sex with my wife that evening, and for her part, she also didn't encourage me to do so. It took me a very long time before I finally fell asleep. Next to me, I could tell that Anna was also having the same problem. While lying next to her in our bed, I finally made up my mind that I was going to have a talk with her the next day. Since it was going to be Saturday, I was going to make a final effort to try to save our marriage. We were sitting at the kitchen table when I brought up the matter to her the following morning. Anna, have you noticed that for the last few months our love life has been going down the drain? We used to make love 2 or 3 times per week, and now we don't even do it once a week. It has been almost 2 weeks now that you and I haven't made love. Is there something wrong? Are you cheating on me? She just stopped chewing on her omelet and looked at me. I could see that she was shocked by what I had just said. She wasn't expecting this from me. After all, never once in our 8 years of marriage had I ever said anything like this to her. You have a lot of nerve, Tom, to talk to me like that, she snapped. My wife always called me Tom at home. She would use the name Thomas only when she wasn't happy with me or when she wanted to make a point. I could tell by her look now that she was very angry with me. How could you doubt me after all of those years that we have been together? I work hard both at home and at the office, and after all those years together, it is only normal that our sex life should cool down a little. I don't think it's fair of you to even think this. I'm not accusing you. It's just that in the last year you have changed a lot, Anna. Even the presence of our daughters around you in the house seems to bother you. Have you noticed that they seldom expect your attention now? They come to me each time they have a problem. I could tell that I had hit a sensitive chord as she looked at me with still more anger in her expression. It occurred to me then that it was hopeless to try and talk to her about our problem. There are only 24 hours in a day, and I don't have time to wipe the nose of those 2 brats all the time. It is only normal that you should help me. It was evident to me, judging by the way her expression suddenly changed, that she had said these words without thinking. Calling her daughters brats was something a loving mother should never do. She must have realized this a few seconds later, but the word had left her mouth, and she couldn't take it back now. The expression on her face gradually changed from one of anger to one of pain, and all of a sudden she got up and went running to her room. Yes, it was clear to me that it was completely hopeless to try talking to her. As many women will do in these circumstances, they will simply use the crying fit excuse to get out of a discussion which they aren't winning. Therefore, I just dropped the matter for the moment. Saturday afternoon, Anna went shopping as she usually did each Saturday. I knew that she probably went looking for a new outfit to wear for her upcoming trip with David to Denver. While she was gone, and since the children were busy playing in their room, I began to look for her birth control pills in our bedroom. After 15 minutes, I found them in her walk-in closet, just like she had said to Laura. They were hidden inside a shoebox along with a pair of shoes. The pills were neatly set in a plastic rectangular dispenser. Inside the box, along with the already open dispenser, there were 2 other sealed ones. She had mentioned that she had been taking them for a full year now. It thus meant that she must have started taking them right at the beginning of her affair with David. She certainly didn't want to get pregnant since she knew that I had had a vasectomy. If she did, there would be no way for her to explain her being pregnant except to admit that she was cheating on me. I felt a surge of sadness and anger. I even felt a little pity for her at that moment. How could she be so cruel to her family? In my eyes at that moment, she no longer was the wonderful wife that I had married 8 years ago. Where was that woman that I loved so much, and who in turn cared for me more than she cared for herself? What had happened to her? I wanted my wife back, but I knew that she was lost to me forever. I thought about my daughters while I still held the already open pills dispenser in my hand. What was going to happen to our family? It was now plain to me that my marriage was over. At the same time, I also knew that I would never leave my 2 daughters into her care. I began to cry for long minutes as I sat on top of our bed, still holding the open dispenser in my hand. Then despair replaced sadness in my heart. In turn, this was accompanied by a strong urge to seek revenge against her and her lover. Slowly, as I sat on top of our bed with my eyes still red and in tears, a plan began to develop in my mind. It was an evil plan. It wasn't something that a compassionate man would do to his wife, but there was no more room for compassion and forgiveness in my heart. Vengeance and hatred had taken over most of my emotions now. After examining the pills that were in the dispenser, I carefully pulled one out. I next took my 2 daughters to my mother's house, and I went to the drugstore. It took me half an hour to examine all the different bottles of pills on the shelves so as to find exactly what I wanted. I finally picked 2 different bottles that contained pills that were white and round and very similar in size to the pills that were in my wife's dispenser. Only then, once I had both bottles in my hand, did I read the labels on the bottles. On one bottle it said that the pills were for liver pains, while the other contained aspirin for babies. I bought both bottles. Once home, I opened both bottles, and taking a pill from each, I carefully compared them with the pill I already had from my wife's dispenser. The aspirin pill was just the right size to fit in one of the small holes of the dispenser, even though it was just a bit thicker. I then got myself busy replacing all the remaining pills from the open dispenser with aspirin pills. Next, I placed the dispensers back into the shoebox. I next went to pick my daughters from my mom's house. When my wife arrived home later, I just hoped that neither one of my daughters would mention that they had spent an hour at my mom's house. In any case, I already had prepared an excuse for bringing them there. So life went on, and on Tuesday of the following week, Anna told me that she was going to attend another convention in Denver for 3 days and 2 nights. When I asked her who was going there with her, she simply said it would be as usual one of the secretaries from work was going with her. She didn't tell me which one, of course. While she was in Denver, she didn't bother to phone home once. Even so, our 2 daughters didn't seem to miss her while she was there, even though I did. The second day after she left, I phoned from a public phone at the firm where she worked, and I asked to speak to David Walton. I was told that he was out of town and would only be back the following week. I certainly knew where he was. He was busy playing the married husband with my wife. When Anna came back from Denver, she hugged me as soon as she walked into the house. Later, when our daughters were in bed in the evening, she took me by the hand and she led me to our bedroom. We made love for almost 2 hours that evening. I suppose that she was feeling bad for not calling home once during these 3 days, and she thought she could make it up to me by indulging me with sex. Or was it that she felt some remorse for having screwed David's brain out while she was with him? Or could it be that she was sorry for what she had said to me about our daughters before leaving, and she was trying to buy her words back by having sex with me? Yes, she was trying to win me back by granting me the privilege of using her body. For the last couple of months, she no longer considered my use of her body as my marital right, and every time we were having sex together, she was doing me a favor when she was allowing me the use of her body. In the last few months, her lover had now gained the exclusive right to her body. For the past year, he had gradually pushed me aside in the mind of my wife. She probably didn't realize yet that she had gone so far, but judging by the way that she had been treating me, I knew that I was second to David now. Of course, I greatly enjoyed sex with her that night when she got back home to me. It was like a wonderful breath of fresh air entering into my starving lungs. Yes, sex with Anna had always been great. After all, I still loved her, but I still planned to get my pound of flesh from her. Anna and Laura continued to chat about twice a week, and while chatting with her, I told her that I had started to go out with Roberto again. I even went into the intimate details of our lovemaking on the first time we got back together. I wanted to find out exactly what she had done with David and what she was still doing when she was doing him. What better way to learn about her activities in bed than to describe what I was doing with my fictitious lover? Gradually, I learned that my wife did things with her lover that she had never allowed me to do with her. I felt devastated. It pained me terribly when she wrote these words to Laura. She was still my wife, and I recalled her once telling Laura that she loved me more than life itself. How could she love me and do the things she did? What was wrong with her, I kept asking myself. She certainly wasn't acting like she still loved me. She was slowly killing me with neglect and indifference. How could she still claim to love me? After I made the changes to the pills, I often checked the shoebox again to see if she was still taking them. I did notice that each day there was 1 pill less in the dispenser. As soon as the dispenser was empty, she opened another one, and I made the change of pills again. After the first day, 2 more weeks went by, and I began to notice that she was beginning to pay more attention to me and to our daughters. She no longer had that empty look in her eyes. She was even laughing and smiling more often when she was home. Then one day, about 2 weeks after she got back from Denver, she got in from work one late afternoon, and I could tell she had a problem. Something was bothering her, and it was easy to see. When I asked her what was wrong, she just began crying and ran to her room. Even though I had a good idea what her problem was, it was confirmed to me when I checked her pills the next day. She hadn't taken them for the last 2 days. She was pregnant, and she now knew it, which explained why she was no longer taking her daily pill. As soon as I had a chance, I replaced the remaining aspirin from the dispenser with the original birth control pills that I kept in a drawer of my office for that purpose. I did this just in case she brought the pills back where she bought them to complain about the fact that they hadn't done what they were supposed to do. The ball was beginning to roll now, and I knew that very soon the crap was going to hit the fan. It wouldn't be long before my wife realized that her cheating on me for the last 15 months was going to cost her much pain and suffering, pain that certainly wasn't worth the hours of pleasure she had experienced in the arms of her lover. Even though I had tried a few times to get her to tell me what was bothering her, she had refused to open up to me and talk about her affair as well as her pregnancy. Had she admitted everything to me at that moment, I still would have divorced her, and I still would have insisted that she has nothing to do with raising our 2 daughters in the future. But at least my looking for some form of revenge against her would have ended there. No, she had to keep on lying to me and continue to take me for a fool, even with a baby that was not mine growing inside her belly. I wasn't quite ready to let the cat out of the bag yet and tell her that I knew all about her cheating and her pregnancy. I wanted more proofs of her affair, since it was my intention to sue the firm where she was working for breaking up my marriage. Anna hadn't chatted with her friend Laura for a couple of weeks since the day before she had gone to Denver, and I was anxious to know if she was going to tell her about her pregnancy. So as soon as I saw her sit in front of her computer one evening after the children were in bed, I ran to the basement and logged in to chat with her. She talked about her trip to Denver, and she even bragged to Laura how much she had enjoyed the 2 nights that she had spent in bed with David. She even told her that they had sex half the night away while they were together. On a sudden impulse, Laura asked her if she was ready to leave her husband to be with David, but my wife surprised me again by telling her that she would never leave me since she loved me. She wrote that when she was with David, it was only sex she was having, and she certainly didn't love him. But what stunned me the most was when she added that she was now looking forward to ending her affair with him and getting back to being my loving wife again. But she never told her that she was pregnant. I had a big surprise for her if she expected to return to the way things were before she began cheating on me for well over a year. She had been screwing that bastard and giving him all the sex he wanted, while at the same time she was more often than not refusing her body to me. In other words, she was giving freely to David what rightfully belonged to me. Friday evening, she finally told Laura that she was pregnant with David's child. She and David were planning to go to a private clinic together so that she could have an abortion. She explained to Laura that in 2 weeks' time, on Wednesday the 21st, she had an appointment in a clinic in Riverdale. It was a small town where the clinic was situated, and she and David were going to spend a few days there so that she could recover after the abortion. Of course, I printed everything so that I could use it against her. Riverdale was about an hour's drive from our house, and the following day I took a few hours off work and drove there. Identifying myself as Anna's husband, I went to check at the registration if they could confirm the reservation for Anna's abortion for the 21st, and they did. I asked for a written confirmation with the clinic stamp on it, and at the same time I was able to get the name of the doctor who would be performing the abortion. He was Dr. Keith Miller. A week later, while we were all sitting at the table, Anna announced to me that once again she had to attend an important convention in Denver. She was going to be gone 2 nights once again, but she also added that this was the last time ever that she was going to attend a work-related convention or meeting. I was not impressed since I knew the truth about her trip, and she was kind of taken by surprise by my lack of enthusiasm about this being her last trip. I already knew that things were cooling off between her and her lover, and that was probably why she no longer planned to go on any convention in the future. But it was now much too late for me to ever consider forgiving her. I took the day off work on Wednesday the 21st, and early in the morning, Anna kissed me before leaving the house. She then drove to the airport in her Ford. I knew from her chatting that she only intended to park her car there. She was going to ride with David in his car to Riverdale. As soon as she was gone, I got into my car and drove to Riverdale. I parked in front of the clinic in such a way that I had a clear view of the main entrance, and I waited. About an hour later, with my digital camera in hand, I took pictures of her and David entering the clinic. I had no trouble getting both of their faces clearly on a couple of pictures. As soon as they were inside, I drove away since I didn't want them to see me. On the 23rd, at around 4 p.m., I was home since, unknown to Anna, I had taken 2 weeks vacation from work. Anna walked into the house carrying an overnight bag and a small suitcase. She looked pale and stressed, and she was surprised to see me already home so early. Everything was now ready. The same day that Anna left for Riverdale, I went to see my lawyer, and later we both drove to the firm where Anna was working. I was able to talk to Ronald Ross, the president of the firm. I explained to him everything that had been going on between my wife and David Walton. I even told him that David had impregnated my wife, and at that very moment, they were both in a clinic in Riverdale so that she could get an abortion. I also told him that I was divorcing her, and also I was suing David as well as the firm. David for alienation of affection, and the firm for not enforcing the code of boss-employee relationships. I also told him that I was even willing to fight in court if necessary, since I had all the proofs that I needed to win. I even had the photos of David and my wife entering the clinic together. We all knew that the bad publicity against the firm would be devastating, and he asked me to hold things for a day so that he could talk with his associates on the matter. I know that he got his lawyers involved, and they did ask many questions to the other secretaries, and he also phoned the clinic in Riverdale to confirm what I had told him. The following day, after much argument, we agreed that I would receive $400,000 in damages if I were to drop all charges against the firm. Of course, David Walton was going to be fired, and so was my wife. Then, on second thought, since I didn't want to have to support her while she was out of work, and also because of the fact that she was the mother of my daughters and I didn't want her to fall on welfare, I finally demanded that the firm continue to pay her salary for a full year and that they also pay all the counseling and health care she was going to need for the next 5 years. It was finally agreed, and my lawyer had a long discussion with their lawyers, and they prepared the documents which I signed. Then a check was given to my lawyer. It was post-dated until my divorce would be over, since I didn't want my wife to be eligible for any of that money. I was all ready to face Anna now. I even had my lawyer prepare the divorce papers and a restraining order so that she would have to keep away from the house and from my daughters until our divorce was settled. In a letter that I placed in the envelope of the divorce documents, I explained to her that if she didn't agree with my conditions of divorce, then I was going to fight her in court. I would then ask for full custody of our daughters, and she would never see them again. When Anna got back home the following day, everything was ready, and since it was now Friday, I knew that she wasn't going to learn about the divorce and that she had lost her job until Monday morning. As soon as she entered the house, I was waiting for her in the living room. She was surprised to see me home so early in the afternoon. "Tom, why are you home so early? And why didn't you go pick up the girls before coming home? I took the day off and our daughters are still with my mother. I have something important to discuss with you. This is why I didn't get them yet. What could be so important that warranted you to take a day off?" Well, it all began a few weeks ago when I was changing the light bulb in the walk-in in our room. I had to move a few things so as to get the footstool under the fixture, and when I did this, a box fell open, and this is what I found inside. I went to the couch and took the shoebox with the shoes and the 2 remaining pill dispensers still in the box. I then placed the whole box right in front of her on the living room table. Can you explain this? The overnight bag that she still held in her right hand slipped from her hand to the floor, and her whole face became ash white. For a few seconds, an expression of emptiness hit her emotions, but it didn't last long. Then all of a sudden she half shouted in a voice full of panic, oh God, no. This is not happening." All of a sudden she had to sit on the arm of the couch. I could tell that her legs would no longer support her weight as her body began to sway back and forth as she sat there with her hands pressed to the side of her face. She was a sad sight to see. "Well, dear faithful wife," I went on, "how can you explain these pills? Why are you afraid of getting pregnant when you know that I have had a vasectomy just after our second daughter was born? Unless you have been screwing with someone else behind my back? Tom, listen, Tom, I can explain everything. You are making this look so vile and so out of proportion. Just listen to me, please." I could now read the distress and fear all over her face. Her lips were trembling and her hands were shaking as she looked at me with her tearful and pleading eyes, but I kept on accusing her of her infidelity. "You have been screwing behind my back for who knows how long, and you say that this affair that you are having is not vile? You have been giving to another man what you have been refusing to me, and now I suppose that you think that you can talk your way out of all that cheating? I don't love him, Tom, and it is over. I have always loved you and only you. Please, let us talk. I need for you to listen to me. We must find a solution." Tears were freely flowing over her white blouse, while her eyes were swollen and very red from the tremendous emotion and pressure that she was under at the moment. "How can you say that you love me when you have been cheating on me for God knows how many months? You have broken your marriage vows, and you have betrayed me and our daughters. I will tell you everything. I hope you will understand, Tom. It is something that just happened, and there has never been any love between us. Yes, talk we must. You have a lot of explaining to do, dear wife. First, let us talk about your recent trip to Denver, or should I say Riverdale. Had I hit her with my right fist between the eyes, I don't think she would have been more surprised. She just looked at me with her mouth open and her eyes wide with horror. She did try to say something, but nothing coherent came out of her mouth. Yes, Anna, I know all about Riverdale and why you went there. Would you like to enlighten me in case there is something that I don't understand? All of a sudden, she got up and ran to her room crying. For long minutes, I just stood there debating in my mind whether I should go and check on her. I was worried that she might take pills and do away with herself and her problems, but I couldn't bring myself to check on her. She didn't come out of her room for the next 2 hours, but later I did hear her take a shower after she had been crying for a long time. When she came out of her room wearing just her long gown, she looked terrible. Her eyes were still red and swollen, and her face was the image of pain itself. She slowly went to sit in front of me at the kitchen table, and even though she didn't look at me straight in the face, she asked me, "Tom, what are you going to do? I don't want to lose you, and I will do anything to make amends to you. I think you are a little late for that now. Do you remember all those long months when I tried to be nice to you, when I was dying to make love to you? I would have licked your feet if you had asked me, but no. You were saving yourself for your lover and giving him what was rightfully mine. You have been slowly killing the love I had for you, Anna. There is very little left now." Again, she went into a fit of crying with her head resting on her folded arms on top of the table. "Forgive me, Tom. Oh, please say you still love me, I beg you." At that moment, I was tempted to reach for her and hold her in my arms. I still did love her as much as I did when we were married, but I knew it would be a mistake to admit this to her. In a calm voice, I told her that she had to tell me everything: who her lover was, how she had met him, and the things that they had done together. She finally confessed everything to me. I don't think she lied, since everything that she said seemed to confirm what I already knew. She also confessed her abortion in Riverdale. She also said that she had been having sex with David a couple of times per week, sometimes in his office and once a week in the afternoon in a motel room. We didn't talk much during the rest of the weekend, and early on Monday morning, as soon as she got to her office, she was served with the divorce papers. A few minutes later, the president of the firm told her that she and David were out of a job. Since I had a restraining order against her, she could no longer come home, but she did phone me Monday at noon. She was devastated. Before hanging up on her, I told her that I was going to send her clothing to her mother, and that she no longer had any business coming home, and that all the locks of the house had been changed. I heard later that after I hung up on her that day, they had to take her to the hospital since she collapsed. As soon as I hung up, she was at her mother's house when she called me, and her mom had to call an ambulance to get her to the hospital. 2 weeks later, she did sign the divorce papers, and she accepted all of my conditions. I agreed to let her see our daughters at my mother's place for a couple of hours each Saturday. 6 months later, I was free of her. I was no longer married to her officially. I heard from her mother that she was still very depressed and in therapy. She had lost a lot of weight, and she never went out of the house since she no longer worked. Gradually, I did let her see our daughters more often and without supervision. I even allowed her to take them to her mother's house for a weekend. As time went on, I could tell that our daughters were getting more attached to their mother, and I knew that this was going to be a problem sooner or later. A year after the divorce, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and she no longer could take care of my daughters while I was working. Anna phoned me one day and she made me an offer. "Listen, Tom, I know that your mother can no longer take care of our daughters while you work, and I would be willing to assume that role if you want. Anna, I don't know what to say. Do you think that it would be a good idea? For one thing, your parents live almost 30 miles from here, and the trip back and forth each day would be too much for the children. Besides, I don't want to give any false hope of us getting back together to our daughters." I knew that saying that was a blow to her, but she didn't seem to react to what I had just said. I rejected her offer and did not allow her to complete. I knew that I could not take care of my daughters, and I did not have a lot of money to hire a nanny for them. A few weeks later, I got an offer from Anna's last company. We had an out-of-court settlement against my lawsuit, and the money was enough for me to hire a nanny for them. 1 year down the line, I was dating a very nice woman, Maria. She was a widow and did not have any kids. Both my daughters love her and have accepted her role as their mother. It took time, but I removed Anna from my life. I only meet her when she comes to visit our daughters. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Do you think the husband handled the situation the right way? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama stories.